And hello there, lords and ladies, Internet. Welcome back to this episode of the Council of Candor, episode 45. Today, we're going to be
45.
talking about creatures in fantasy and how do you design them. We have a great group of guests and hosts tonight, some returning faces, some new faces. So we're going to quickly introduce everybody so we can get into the topic. Starting on the far left is our first and one of the oldest hosts. Welcome back, Des.
Yo.
That man is so old.
I was going to say, I am the oldest host. I'm the one who showed up on the first one.
This is true.
Mhm.
And as you can tell, Des is going to contribute wildly and very, very fruitfully to this conversation.
Exactly. Why would he do anything else?
I always do.
And next up, we have our returning fellow YouTuber, Mr. Garbled, aka the Shoddy Strawman. How you doing,
Hello.
Garbled?
I'm doing pretty alright. I am currently still working on getting videos out, so we'll see how that goes. I have scripts, and the good news is that today we're talking about monster designs, and I've played Pokemon, so you could consider me a bit of an expert myself.
Expert?
Are you an expert?
Yeah.
You know, I'm a bit of a scientist myself.
Obviously, you know me, Mr. King of Candor. I don't think I need to give any introduction to all my lovely viewers today, but I will tell you all that I have some interesting developments on this subject. I've been working on things related to this for a long time, and I got a lot of thoughts on monster design. Some may be hot takes, but we'll see. And to my immediate right is our brand new guest for this evening, Mr. Mitch. How you doing today, Mitch?
Hey, doing good. If my audio is miffed, it's because I just switched to my laptop.
You sound fine so far, my friend. Is there anything you want to plug? Any discussion things you want to talk about? Anything like that? Or are you just going to come hang out with us tonight?
Nope, I am too busy to consider myself a true writer because I don't do it frequently enough.
You should do it more.
You cannot find me anywhere online. I'm an internet nomad.
Excellent.
Nice.
And if you want to come visit the Nomad, come join the server, linked below. So, and
I also just learned the Discord.
it's okay. And last but not least, we have Pops, who has some special thing he's been cooking up for us.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Shout out to everyone in the chat who can make it tonight. I'm, as always, pleased to be here and excited for this one. So, yeah, this is always something that's interested me since I was a little kid, writing made up basically fake Pokemon comics and things like that for fun. And, reading all about Greek myths and things like that inspired these fantasy creatures. And so I had luckily a resourceful friend who gave me a few books to read that, were kind of encyclopedias of mythical monsters and creatures like that. And it opened with a quote that I think is pretty pertinent to what we'll be discussing here today from Da Vinci. And I showed it to these guys and they said, yeah, go ahead and we'll open with that. It's pretty cool. So I'll try to put my reading voice on. This is from Da Vinci and what he wrote about the creation of imaginary animals from one of the books that my buddy gave me. So he says, you cannot make any such animal without making its limbs bear some resemblance to those of other animals. If you want your dragon to look natural, then take the head of a mastiff or a setter, the eyes of a cat, the ears of a porcupine, the nose of a greyhound, the eyebrows of a lion, the crest of an old cock, and the neck of a turtle. Oh, excuse me. Oof. Anyway, he goes on. It is this very likeness to the normal that skews our perception and aesthetic values, giving us the sense of the monstrous. And I think that's pretty pertinent. Like if you want to have like a creature, fantasy animal, what have you, that kind of resonates in people's minds and, makes them actually feel compelled. In a way, I think that's kind of a good point to go off of as like what my thesis statement is. What's the main goal of a thing like this designing? All right, you guys can go on. I yapped a bit.
I think you're completely correct on that, Pops. And
Yeah.
I think that is one of the things that sets a good monster design apart from a slop monster design. Obviously, you can draw anything if you want and make it look, call it a monster of some sort. But the better monster designs are ones that have a little bit of thought and energy put into them. And by the way, hello, Mr. Late Night Losers. What's up, my goon? Go subscribe to him and watch his live streams. He makes the best Persona content on the whole platform. Is my friend IRL. So yes, but speaking of monsters and things like Persona, a lot of the best monster designs I think are, how do I put this? It's like the Da Vinci quote said, they're remixes of things that we know. So when you're trying to design your own monster, I think that starting from something that is known is much easier. On that point, the thing I wanted to say, which is probably going to be my big fantasy hot take, is you shouldn't create your own monsters. You probably should open up with taking a pre-existing monster and seeing if it fits your work or if you can make it fit your work well. You don't have to do a one-for-one recreation, of course, but the idea that all these great fantasy creatures exist and you're just going to ignore them is kind of like irritating to me, because even Tolkien didn't do that. Tolkien took a lot of what he thought were the best fantasy creatures and tropes and brought them into his world and changed them just ever so slightly in ways to make it so they would fit his story. And that's one of the reasons his worlds resonate so well.
Yeah. A similar example, it's not the exact same as creature design, but it's that you want to be able to, if you're marketing a product, make it recognizable. You don't want to make it completely alien. And one of the things is Magic the Gathering. I want to get into some of their creatures a bit later, but one of the things that they do very heavily is that they take inspiration from real-world places for their planes and where they explore. And one of those places is called Theros. It's the Greek-inspired plane. And during testing of making that set, they wanted to have a very similar idea to the Trojan horse, and they have cards for that. And one of the things they wanted to test in development was, well, we don't want it to just be a one-for-one ripoff, because, that'd be kind of boring. So instead of this being a horse, how about we make it like not a jellyfish, or like, instead of a horse, how about we make it like a merfolk or something? And the problem is that as soon as that went away, people were like, what is this? I don't understand what you're trying to get at here. What's going on? And even though it's the Greek set and it's the Trojan horse, because you changed what animal it was completely unrecognizable.
Change it to an animal that's so far away from the original that it's going to be like caught off guard. Had they
Yeah.
made it maybe a Trojan griffin, that might have been able to get away with it possibly. But something
Yeah.
like a merfolk is so different that it's like that's not going to work.
Griffins, absolutely. People believed in griffins for like a minute. Like,
Well, they make sense
Yeah.
to exist. Like, if you look at them, they're not so weird that you look at like, what the hell am I looking at?
I mean, like, there's the famous thing where, like, I know it's been said a few times on the internet. I don't know, I haven't looked too much into it. But like, I mean, if you look at like a lot of the descriptions of like mythical creatures, and like you take it from the perspective of, nowadays everyone has the internet, or they've been to the zoo and they've seen, say a rhinoceros or giraffe or something. But if you take some of these descriptions and just tell it to someone and try to describe it to them that's never seen it, you haven't seen this creature in like maybe months at best,
and
or
then, obviously it was like a game of telephone, the way that it like kind of
exactly
Asia over the trade routes and everything, and
exactly
Yeah.
exactly like the only time where like it would have been practical for them to even have the faintest hint of seeing it would be the times when the Romans would have their Colosseum games, and then they'd usually import some exotic stuff from either
Abroad.
Africa or like sometimes Indian delegates would come with some exotic animals and they'd throw them in the Colosseum as well. But I mean, it was rare and it was far in between, of course.
I got a fun fact for you though, because like despite the fact that they, people did believe they were real, it was like they couldn't quite wrap their heads around it because it always had changing forms, just the way that it was described. And then on top of that, there was a Roman piece of art I read about today in one of the little encyclopedia things that said that they had like, the art of all the animals in the Colosseum that were captured, like, bears and lions and everything. And they had one that was actually, instead of being in a cage, it was a griffin that was on top of a cage with a human caged inside of it. And they said that it was supposed to represent like the untamable nature of them, which kind of plays into the fact that it's like, yeah, we can't even find these things. Like nobody knows where they are. We can't even, tame one or anything.
Right.
Well, and to consider, even nowadays, the conception of something that big that can fly is kind of wild.
Yeah, no, it was still crazy though. There was, I think it was maybe it was like Saint Isidore, but Charlemagne, I know for sure, had what he said was like a griffin's claw, like a drinking horn made out of a griffin's claw, and it was like
Oh really? That's
was the
hilarious.
horn.
That's awesome.
It was like it was the horn of like some sort of bovine, and it was like, yeah, these must have been like just enormous creatures. And these
There you go.
stuff, yeah.
Wasn't one of the? I remember there being. I don't remember if it was a famous image or at least a talking point of a whole bunch of blind men surround an elephant trying to figure out what it looks like, and everybody has this different interpretation because of where they're looking.
Yeah, that mentioned that's a poem, and I think it comes from India, but it was adapted in like the. I'm literally, I could read it to you if I could read it right now.
The blind men and the elephant.
Yeah, so it's 6 men. Yeah, 6 men are all they're surrounding an elephant in the dark. That's the important part, is that they're in a dark room, and so they're all touching a different part of it and all trying to guess what it is. And so the poem goes, and so these men of Indostan disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion, exceeding stiff and strong, though each was partly in the right and all were in the wrong. And it says they each thought they felt they were feeling the side, tusk, trunk, leg, ear, and tail. And one says it's a wall, the other says it's a spear, the other a snake, a tree, a fan, and a rope. And yeah, that's fun little.
Yeah. So not to step back too much, but something I just thought of when going back to the point of design is that with the interconnectivity of the world and the great availability of information nowadays, especially as it comes to biology and fantasy, I think it speaks to Kid's point that basing your creatures off of an existing one is good, to the point that you avoid trappings like those Mr. Garble pointed out, where you stray too far from what the meta has in mind. Maybe that's just reiterating the other point.
But no, you're trying to get out a specific intention. Like, the entire point of words and stories is to get across ideas. And by referencing other ideas which are similar, you're trying to then echo that back using your
It's not so much that. I think it's more of a broad appeal to the meta that needs to happen, especially when you're trying to. You have to be aware of. Oh god, how do I say this without non-circuitously? You have to be aware of how much people are going to already be aware of your creature if it has any basing in reality.
Yeah, you don't want to change it so much that you just simply stole the name of the creature is what you're getting at. I completely agree. That happens so often with fantasy that it grinds my gears a lot when I see that, because like I'm okay with you taking orcs are a great example. Orcs used to be much more monstrous and much more pig-like. But whenever I see people take orcs in such a wild direction, that I've seen them become these strange, like, shadow magic creatures. I'm like, why would you do that? They're always
Pops, me and you.
Huh?
I'm sorry, I just want to say, me and Pops on the same page. You started laughing, Pops. I know exactly what you're laughing at. Okay, dirty mind. Go on.
Yo, you made me forget what I was gonna say, man.
It's okay.
You're gonna say something?
By the way, I got the blind man and the elephant on the screen if anybody's curious how that image looks out, where the fan is and stuff like that. It's labeled. So, but yeah, so I see that all the time, and to Mitch's point, you don't take the essence of something and twist it in a way that completely ruins the original. Go ahead, Pop.
I was gonna say this. Yeah, that's how almost. I feel like that's why people didn't like the prequel trilogy of Star Wars, was because the designs of the characters got a little over the top. Like, that might be why people hated Jar Jar Binks so much. Like, what if he was looked like a human more?
Toned down a little bit more, or even if he looked like that, he wasn't so animated so wildly.
Yeah, I mean,
because like
time.
The Gungans are kind of like the first, at very least, on screen species that had very like a wildly different design, where it was like truly alien. Like, there's not really like, he has like kind of a toad look or like a frog look, but then it's of course got like the snail eyes, so then it's got like weird features like all around, where beforehand it's like a lot of them were like, you had the Trandoshan, so it's like, oh, lizard man. You had I guess
Des, would it be as simple as to say it's removed from the Star Trek era of, oh, that's clearly a person in a suit?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is part of it too. The fact that it was like animation.
they were a lot more human shaped. You know, still.
They were generally more human shaped. There's a few examples, but like they're like blink and you miss it. I mean, part of it too is just that the original trilogy, a lot of the aliens we see are like background characters, and they show up in like one scene, two scenes. Like
Something like that.
they're not like major parts of the films. Like the most major part of the films that has an alien is Admiral Akbar, and he has like 5 lines, maybe like
And
6.
he's also a meme.
And he became a meme. So like people kind of accepted it. Where Jar Jar Binks was the first time in the movies. Of course, asterisk.
All you have to do is just get Jar Jar Binks right, and everything else falls into place.
Exactly. Jar Jar is the key.
Oh, yeah, absolutely is.
But it was the first case where it was an alien creature in the Star Wars universe that's a main character that is wildly different, because like Chewie of course was always there, but you didn't understand Chewie, and Chewie's also basically Bigfoot. So that's kind of interesting, to think about. Exactly.
Much easier to understand, going off your point. But
Mhm.
I actually think that one of the big things that for Jar Jar why he didn't work is because he was too much of a comedy character, and
I was also gonna say, yeah, it didn't help that, like, I mean, in Qui-Gon's word, the ability to speak does not make you intelligent. Like, they just had this idiot character tag along, the entire time, being
you have
an
to have
idiot.
likable aspects. You can't just be, hey guys, this is me. I'm funny.
Well,
I mean-
yeah, not only that, but he fails upwards. Like, not only that, but I'm sure it's also like was infuriating because he fails upwards,
Yeah,
where
that's
like
the
him,
characterization.
because well, like, not only they bring along, but then it's like, okay, he fails upwards because he gets made a general, and then he's like an idiot during the general thing. But half the time, his stupid mistakes actually end up working out for him. Like when gets a droid tangled on his leg, shoots a droideka that's about to kill him, or when he destroys a tank guy, when the General Tarful's, I think it is, throws him the electric thing, and then he's like, oh, he's bouncing around his hands, and then when it finally slips out, it hits the commander. He slinks over, and the whole tank just starts going out of control.
On top of the things, Jar Jar's people are also, except for Captain Tarpals, all just goofy and retarded as well. You have Boss Naps who's just like, I'm big fat man. Like, why is everybody here stupid and funny?
I mean, the captain still says, "You son, big doo doo this time."
Yeah.
Yeah, like the whole
Same guy.
language is based on like their customs. Their customs are weird and silly, and their language inherently is very childish because they literally, like their entire language is based on like childish words like Yusa, doo doo, like big bomba. Like it makes it a lot harder for people to take it
Take it
seriously.
seriously, exactly. And that's one of the things that you want for your fantasy creatures as you're designing them. You want people to take them seriously. You want to be able to look at something and be like, ah, yes, I see how this got designed, or I can see how this fits in the world. Besides taking pre-existing fantasy creatures, we're going to go over in a little bit. I want to do a quick side tangent just to pull it around to it. One of the easiest things that I think that you can do if you're a new designer trying to figure out like how I want to include monsters or creatures that could exist, go look at extinct animals. There's a huge amount of crazy, awesome extinct creatures that we have. Like I was talking about the other day, the giant armadillos that they just look weird. Like they have like a spike club tail that looks kind of like an ankylosaur. That's cool as heck. Go ahead,
There's
Mitch.
a Brachiosaurus. Which one is it?
To that point, like the thing that makes Monster Hunter fun and the whole reason people play it is because they have one of two design philosophies. They're like, let's take something that looks like it's some extinct, you're like walking in like the Natural History Museum or whatever, and then it's like, and this was the giant sloth that lived 2 billion years ago, and it was, it just walked around and ate plants all day. And it's like, well, that's cool, like, whatever. And then they're like, let me jack up the size by like 10 times. It's now carnivorous. It's going to kill anything in its way. And it's like, that's an awesome thing. I want to kill it.
Claws or electrical pylons or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then they'll also do like, or they have that, or they're like, we're just gonna do the like dinosaurs before we knew that they were giant birds that could, giant, birds with whatever. Like, we're just gonna, we're just gonna do old dinosaurs. Like, and it's like, yes, because those look awesome. Like, I don't care that the T-Rex is supposed to have feathers, whatever. It looks awesome when it's a giant lizard making, like a lion mixed with like an alligator, like whatever they did to get the, the noises for the, iconic T-Rex in like Jurassic Park. Like, I don't care that that's not what it looks like or that's what it sounds like. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, if you're introducing something that doesn't look like anything, you'd have a point of reference for it. You'd have to personify it in some way. And I mean, I don't know, the Raptors were like characters in a way.
Well, I just mean that I agree. They are like the Jurassic Park characterized it, but I only use that as a point to be like, what are like Monster Hunter, like what do people like care about that? It's just like big dinosaur, ancient extinct thing, and like that's a easy way to like find something that's like still semi-exotic. It's like a monster. I mean, it's Monster Hunter. It's got this mythical world where there's predators and like an ecosystem that they set up, especially with like the newer ones where they'll have like 2 or 3 like of the bigger monsters that are like the big ones you actually go out to and kill, and then like the and even then, like, a cool thing they do in the newer ones is that it acts like a semi ecosystem where they can like meet in the wild and then fight each other, and then like it's a 3-way fight, or you just you're like, I'm just gonna watch these guys duke it out. Like, I want to see who wins. I'm placing bets at this point.
Who's only seen a few of the cooking montages, do you eat the monsters that you hunt in Monster Hunter?
You hunt the monsters and you use them for whatever you need them for.
Yeah, so you can get different parts. You can, depending on the weapon, you can either like cut off the tails or crack like certain parts, and then you mainly use it for armor or to build weapons. I believe you can get meats off of some of them, and then you can. There's basically there's this other species in Monster Hunter. I don't remember the exact name. It's like, it starts with a P. It's like Pico or Pachico or something like that. I don't remember the exact term.
I wanted to make a larger point about tying into the ecosystem point that's been raised in this small way here. And I think the best way to do is with the real life example of the Plains Native Americans, who were pretty well known for using every part of the buffalo that they could get their hands on. When you can use your creatures in a similar sort of way, that it doesn't necessarily need to be sustainment or being part of a hunter-gatherer society, but even in a more, I'll say it, a more civilized world, if you're going that direction, if one of your creatures has some sort of religious significance, or in a Chinese medical sense with the rhino horn, that was all over the place. But I think my point becomes clear that the way that creatures are utilized by the people of the world can help lend a lot to their culture, and that's another way you can tie into the meta. Actually,
yes,
is instead of buffalo TPs or what have you, just sort of things like that.
Yeah, I think we definitely get to a deep dive into that in a little bit, though. Before we get too much further, I do want to comment on something Future Warrior said. He's a big fan of the channel. I think that chat, you should go look at his DeviantArt account and give him some love. He says his name is Noah Hilt. We're not going to put it on stream here. I've had issues with putting people's things on stream before. Unless I've talked to them before, explained how it is, and give them explicit permission. I don't like putting people's art and stuff on stream because this is a big public forum and it tends to put a lot of eyeballs on here. Not all of them are going to be friendly, and also when we do criticize stuff, we're not going to hold your hands with it. And I don't want to give it to people, like, they'll put it out here, that'll feel like we're bullying them. Because when we give criticism, especially like Pops and me, we're not going to be nice about it. We're not going to be mean about it either. But if you misspelled the same word 6 times, we're going to be like, dude, run it through a spell check. What are you doing? You're wasting my time. Well, you know, because
So we're in
we
a
have a
situation.
limited amount of time, and
All
it's
right, man.
not fair to us to have us do stuff like that all the time. And I don't know how your art is, Future Wario, but until I've had a personal time to peruse it and see how it is and give you some personal feedback and talk to you, I don't want to put it on screen. It's not really fair to you to do that. And
Yeah,
also,
it's
James, you're
the-
watching Troy. Troy's a great movie. It's very
Troy's awesome.
not correct, but it's just balls to the walls awesome.
Yeah, Troy.
Troy is, in my understanding, it's very much just the Iliad, but removing all the mythological stuff with like the gods. Or is that
But
correct?
it also changes a couple things.
Okay.
It makes Paris look different. It also, Aeneas shows up way more in it because they intended to eventually do the Aeneid as well. Because
interesting.
yeah, because the Aeneid is written later by the Romans to justify the Romans.
Yeah. I solely know about the Aeneid because every time I've been recently reading stuff about Roman history, because I've mainly been reading about like around 0 AD, they're always like, by the way, the Aeneid. I'm like, well, this sounds very interesting because it gets brought up every single time I read about this period. It can have nothing to, like, I'm not even reading about, the literature and stuff. And it's like, by the way, the Aeneid. I'm like, okay, like, I get it.
But have you considered the Aeneid yet?
Okay.
It's one of the only sources we have at the time that was survived. And it's because, remember, we actually don't have any of Caesar's writings. We have none of them. We have writings about Caesar's writings.
No, hang on.
Yep.
I've heard that Caesar himself chose to write his own memoirs in the second person, or the third person.
We think so because that's something that one of the commentators comments on. How Caesar seems to be full of himself and taken out of his own place. But again, we don't have his actual books. We have people commenting on his books. That's for like 80% of human history, by the way. Fun fact, there's more textual proof that Jesus exists than Caesar and Alexander the Great combined. It's really interesting because there's no sources from the people at the time about a lot of this stuff. We really have just massive gaps in history, and we have to rely on just a lot of stuff because, man, it is very difficult for paper to survive, and then not just that, to survive empires that hate you. You think the Ottomans kept Caesar's works alive? No.
I just want to, and this maybe get into a very large tangent that we would never have tangents on the show, as we know.
Yeah,
but
never would. Never have.
Let's do it.
Don't we have, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we have Caesar's commentaries on the Gallic Wars, or am I mistaken on that?
I believe that's the.
Interesting.
We had a commentary about the commentary. Intriguing.
Yeah, there were commentaries on the commentaries, apparently.
By the way, if you really want to here's a real red pill for your chat, the YouTube commentary community where everybody reacts to everybody's videos, that's how almost all ancient books were. You get 2 books in ancient history: a poem or people reacting to people reacting about people reacting. That's all it is. It's fascinating, the ancient world, some of the crazy stuff.
How many books have y'all come across? This is also unrelated. How many books have y'all come across that are just collections of letters and exchanges like that? I feel like somebody had the idea. It's like, we should just publish this. This is genius.
That's actually goes back to Aristotle. I think Aristotle dialogues, or just Plato the dialogues.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I was gonna say I know that's done a lot. I mean, that's how we know a lot about That's how we know a lot about the period before and after, before, during, and after.
I think it was Aristotle writing about Plato, right, Pops?
No, it was Plato writing about Socrates.
Plato writing about Socrates. That's what it was. But yeah. Because Plato. The way that the dialogues are set up, it's just people arguing, and it's the funniest thing ever because he literally says, I'm going to invent a straw man for my boy to go argue and show you how stupid he is. Or he invents 2 straw men who are wrong so they can both lose. It's hysterical watching the dialogues because it's supposed to be written as if you and your buddies are at the bar and you're overhearing conversations. Because back in the day, one of the things that you used to do was you used to argue at the bar with your boys because we didn't have social media. So yes, Twitter
It's
is more close to ancient Athenian discourse on than anything else in modern academics. Right, Pops?
Absolutely. It's funny because we're gonna keep going on a tangent. Just let me say this. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius says he mentions like, thank goodness that I wasn't too good at writing dialogues, because then like I wouldn't have been as productive in real life.
Yep.
Like he looked at that as like vacant. Did you hear me?
Yeah, we heard you fine. I don't know what kid was doing, but I heard you
I'm
fine.
sorry.
Okay,
It was
that's what that was.
He looked at those people the way that we look at like fake intellectuals today.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
2 points. That gives me a very good opening for what I wanted to say, anyways. A big reason why we have so much information about before, during, and after Caesar's assassination, including decades, from my understanding, is because we have fairly good textual evidence from Cicero himself. And because of that, it's mostly letters where he's like talking about the situation, talking about the chaos. I'm similar to the stuff with Marcus Aurelius. He actually says that about Caesar, where I believe he says that he was a great rhetorician, and he might have been the best if he hadn't focused instead on politics and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. You hit it right on.
Chat that every time you listen to Roman history, they always say written by Cicero or Pliny the Elder or Pliny the Younger, because they're like the only people whose books survived.
Oh, by the way, yeah,
That's
Pliny.
not true. There's Suetonius as well, but he's just
True.
gossip. Half of what he's saying is gossip. I freaking love it.
Yeah.
I need to get back into it, but Suetonius rocks, man. He's like, here's some random gossip. Here's some random gossip. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Like, I'm listening to what's it called? Like this is like what's like, this is like Vice or something like that. I'm like, this is like
Yo, Vice.
Yeah, he's like, by the way, I'm not gonna say about all the stuff that Caesar got into, but this. I'm like, dude, like, come on. Like,
Yeah, and I can steer us back on topic, because Pliny the Elder, who you mentioned, kid, he's like the most notorious person of like recording these mythological animals, having never seen them in his life. Like he was the first person. Pliny the Elder, yeah, he was the first person to definitively say that the griffin had wings. Like he was one of the guys who just like, he would hear these stories and then he was just like, all right, I've never seen this thing, but yeah, let me just embellish this a bit, make it awesome.
Small correction, isn't it the younger? Because the younger is
No,
who talked
no.
with. It's not the elder, right? It's the younger. Because the
Dude,
younger.
Who wrote that?
Okay,
The
it's
Elder and the Younger
okay.
both wrote books, and they survived because they fled Pompeii with their books.
but yeah, Pliny the Elder was specifically notorious for doing that with like these fake animals.
So
Gotcha.
I want to slide in the chat real quick and answer a few questions. Drake Boy, go work on your fantasy story. You've got this. The mythical creatures are something you can easily flesh out. Also, I agree, Nordic Draugrs are way more interesting than the ones in Skyrim. If you go back and look at the ones in Morrowind, they are much cooler and more interesting than the ones in Skyrim. The problem with them being in Skyrim is they wanted to make them a more generic enemy type, which did ruin them a bit. James, history is one chaotic and sometimes unknown. That's very true, James. Probably more so the less you have read about it. The more chaotic it seems. On this point, I do want to give a weird segue, but hold on, chat. I'll take you through this together. We'll hold hands. It'll be safe. On the subject of weird mythological creatures that don't exist that you should focus on, there is a fantastic story that you should look into that's called A True Story. It was written by, or it's also known as True History, you could also call it, Lucian of Samosata. So this is important because this book not only is a parody of all these mythological creature stories, it also is the first sci-fi story ever written. Speaking of sci-fi, if you want to go look at a sci-fi story, in the description is linked to Pag's book. You can go to Reading Road and read his first chapter for free. Please go leave a review for him. Tell him we sent you, and tell him he needs to get back on the show and abandon his family for us. So
hang on, what was it?
A True Story or True History.
True History. Wow.
Yeah, by Lucian Samosta. It was the first sci-fi book ever written.
And here I was thinking Frankenstein was one of the first sci-fi books.
Frankenstein's the worst.
I mean,
the first
sci-fi...
true sci-fi. This story, when we get into it, you'll see why it's a bit different. Because the difference is that sci-fi deals solely with scientific stuff, if you will. This might be more science fantasy, but once they explain the story, you're going to find it's hysterical. So, chat, you remember how we just said everybody's currently writing books and they tell you how great they are because they're big brain arguing with each other? In the 2nd century, that changed. By that point, half the people were writing big brain argument books. The other half of the people were writing travel logs, where they were like, hey, man, I went to Africa, and I saw these ants that crapped out gold, and there was guys who stood on 1 foot, and women who they're throwing their boobs around like helicopter blades to fly around. Like, that's all the stories that were being written. And
you know what?
Go ahead, Pops.
You know what's hilarious is if you've heard of like the Beat Generation of American writers, like when it was like the first kind of big move out west in like the modern 20th century, the guys like Jack Kerouac and everything made a killing just writing stuff like that, like going around the country and like, doing weird drugs and just meeting crazy people.
I mean, it was kind of a similar situation where, I mean, I don't know what, like, are you talking about like more of the 60s, 70s era, or what time are you talking about?
No, basically 1945 to 60.
45 to 60. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of similar.
Maybe a little later.
Okay. Well, in some of a similar vein, I mean, the 2nd century was like peak Pax Romana, like, absolute peace. Like the barbarians were like barely a threat; they're not getting anywhere inside. The Persians are just taking L after L in between, the long stretches of peace that are happening. I mean, it's only at the end of the 2nd century that starts to change, and it's barely. The cracks don't start showing until the 3rd century.
2nd century is important because getting back to what we were talking about, the story, a true story,
Very
a true history.
Really
It's really funny because this guy, Mr. Lucian, was pretty pissed off at all these travel logs for being obviously fake and stupid. So he opens the book with just this banger of a line. I'm going to see if I can find it. This is a true story. Everything in the story was put in there. It is above the parody of liars like Homer and Herodotus. Obviously, I've never seen these things, nor have experienced them, nor have heard anybody say them. However, I do not in fact know any of this exists, or that I exist at all. So, you must not believe what I say. That is how you know everything in this story is true. Just banger of an opening line.
He was ahead of his
People
time.
lie. They do that
he was
often, but I'm telling you that I'm lying, so therefore I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
No, dude, he predicted philosophy like in like 1600 years before it happened. He was literally a prophet.
And then my favorite part, I'll get into the story in a second, but the story ends with, and thus the story has finally started. Tune in next time. And then he never wrote a sequel.
That's so based.
So awesome.
That's so based.
But yeah, so the story has a group of sailors sail out past the Pillars of Hercules, which is the Rock of Gibraltar in modern times. Then they get stuck in a wind spout, which launches them to the moon. While they go to the moon, they get involved in the Civil War on the moon, where and also this is the first story to include femboy impregnation, by the way, because all the boys on the moon can get pregnant until they've had a child, then they turn into men.
Nice.
So obviously these guys who can impregnate multiple boys are very sought after commodities. They help the moon fight a war against Venus and Mars, where they end the Civil War, and they also get the sun involved. And it just gets into absolute insanity from there, obviously. I don't want to spoil everything, but the story ends, well, one of the final things that happens is after they get sent back they try to go back to Earth, but get detoured into heaven. When they get into heaven, they see a giant room with all these carved stairs and like busts for people, and almost all the busts have a name on them that have been thrown to the ground because they've been viewed as evil or heretical or people who are stupid. The person who like is at the center of this thing is a single statue that's unnamed. And as he walks up to it, Lucian realizes that's his statue. And all the gods show up and say, yeah, man, we're waiting for you. You're the only truthful person ever in history. And you're also the smartest and the most handsome. In fact, we all want to have sex with you. And he says, you know what, guys? That sounds really cool, but I want to go back home and just hang out with my farm. And they say, if you do that, we're going to literally kill you and your family. And he says, no, you won't, because I'm too beautiful, and walks away. It's hysterical. It's one of the
That is
funniest
the most
stories
Roman.
around.
That is the most Roman ending you could possibly write.
Isn't it?
There is not a more Roman ending than telling everyone like you have the world of responsibility on your shoulder, and you just say, "Nah, I got a farm. You see this farm? It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
We got like cabbages. We got
Yeah, here's a direct
cabbages.
Yeah, here's a direct quote from the book. I just have to read it.
Also, I have
after
to
they
say,
leave the island, they're caught up in a whirlwind and taken to the moon, where they find themselves embroiled in a full-scale war between Endymion, the king of the moon, and Pantheon, the king of the sun, over the colonization of the Morning Star and Lucifer himself. Both armies include bizarre hybrid life forms, this is how it goes back to creatures, including people who are made from the sun that also have lions' heads and the buttholes of asses.
I do have to say, kid, they're I do find it a bit funny that you're like, by the way, I'm not gonna spoil this book that has been out for 1,800 years.
Nobody's read it though. It's the greatest.
I will say no one's read it. I
read.
will not deny no one has read it, and I guarantee you, almost no one here will read it. Still,
I understand that like it's cool and all, but like I do not have time to study the ancient texts unless we're talking specifically about people giving bad reviews about what is it again? Like subpar bronze.
Oh yeah, it's copper. You're thinking about.
I thought you were gonna say old manga from the 2000s.
No.
Des, I am absolutely reading that.
Yeah,
Look,
I know. A couple people in chat are now like, "Oh my god!"
The two people who are gonna read this is me and maybe, or should say maybe me and you.
Pag's gonna read it. I'm gonna force him to. I'm gonna
maybe
do a review on this. I'm gonna make Pag's first only YouTube video is gonna be doing a science fiction review of this book.
Is it just gonna be a one-hit wonder? Make one video, never post again?
I mean, that's what.
Who knows if it'll be a wonder, but it'll be one hit. That's for sure.
Garbled. That's literally what that book was.
Okay, I take a breather for 1 second. I'm sorry.
You all right?
All right.
I want to.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So he's going to be looking over a few things. People.
Yeah. I just want to shout out. Yeah, it's important stuff. I want to shout out a very important comment made by the wonderful Mazrim Tam of I wouldn't read anything Roman anyways, just because it may bring me closer to being Destructo Man 96. That's a good comment you love to see on this channel. Where are we going to go now? Because I forgot how we even got on this tangent.
Yeah, so what we're
back. That's back from the store with milk. So we are going to now focus back on writing like fantasy creatures and how do you deal with them. So what are some good fantasy creatures to pull from and things like that? I know a lot of you have probably heard about the classics. We've already mentioned the Griffin. So we're obviously the Minotaur and things like that. You know all the Greek stuff, and some of you interesting people probably even know like a lot of the Celtic things with the Banshee, with the horse that drowns you and stuff like that.
The Doulahan? Oh, the Doulahan's like. What?
He's not talking about. We're not talking about Doulahans.
No. It was like.
Sorry, so
they were close, but not close enough.
Yeah, it's just fine. Or if you're really into images on the internet of deviant nature, you probably also know about all the Japanese yokai. That's great and all. I'm very happy for you.
I mean, you're not wrong for phrasing it like that, but why did you phrase it like that?
to bully them. They deserve to be bullied.
Come on, you know. Like,
Oh,
come
you
on,
know
you know.
why.
Why exactly?
Yeah, they deserve a
Come
little
on.
bullying. I don't know anybody who's not a complete weeb that's into yokai. Just doesn't exist. You have to live in your mother's basement with pillows that I don't want to know how they're sticky to be into yokai, unfortunately. But on that subject, a lot of other places have really cool creatures too. Lots of places. Even America has some pretty cool creatures. Pops and me, we've been having a great time talking about some of the American cryptids for a while, and the other, the true tales and stuff. Like the snipe is one of my favorites.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
the snipe. But
My personal favorite is probably the jackalope because that almost does have a basis in reality.
Oh, wasn't that because some guy just put some deer antlers on a rabbit?
No. The way that it originally came about is most likely because of what happens when they get papillomavirus. So they actually get these kind of big growths on their head that kind of, I think they start out basically as kind of warts or growths or something like that. But yeah, it looks almost like antlers if you can look up pictures of them. But yeah, people saw that and said, oh, it looks like it has antlers because jackrabbits have papilloma and these swollen things on their head. And so, yeah. And then it became a classic because people did start making taxidermies out of them, but obviously just putting antlers on a jackrabbit. So you're half right. That is how it became so famous and how it gets still referenced today was because it got marketed. And yeah, it became like a mascot almost for the West in a way.
Very much. I just want to very quickly shout out a very important comment from Sweaty Cheese. Cock.
What?
Yeah.
He's just a big fan of the Council of Candor.
He's a big fan. He's almost on every stream. Every stream you look in the comment section, there's Mr. Sweaty Cheese.
Yep.
My first thought was Casino Bot when you said that.
1
500 free spins.
Yes. So if you're trying to, you taxidermist, Maz, you don't understand. Wait till we get to the section of this podcast about mermaids.
He absolutely understands.
Yeah, he definitely does. Yeah. As Maz helpfully pointed out, chat. There's 3 people who are at fault for every horrible thing that's ever gone on in history. It's taxidermists, historians, and people who translate. All those people have ruined your life. Anything that you think is a terrible event that's happened, I promise one of those 3 people caused it.
So you just love the implications. You're you know why your tax return failed? Because some guy translated some stuff wrong.
Yeah.
You have no idea. You have no idea the problems from translations. How much that has affected literally everything. The amount of issues that have come from that is astounding. Astounding.
Here's a great one. Why the South Americans called the Patagonians? Why is it called Patagonia? Because they thought, because Francis Drake said that's what the Spanish called them. These are the people who are 5 cubits high because these are giant people. Because pata means 5 and gones means feet, which is just not true in Spanish at all, or Portuguese. And so now you have the people who have 1 feet that live in Patagonia, or the people who are 5 feet tall, or the people who are giants in Patagonia. You have all these crazy translations of stuff. Meanwhile, they talk about how they beat their wives and they make the wives carry everything because they're so hideously ugly that no man could even dare look at them without turning homosexual. And this is written by the Spaniards in the 1400s that the English swear the Spaniards said. So now you have to worry about, okay, is this just the English calling the Spanish people gay? Or is this actually saying these women are ugly? You can't tell. That's the worst part because they translated it all weird. And that's just one tribe of Native Americans that were off the coast that they waved at. Never mind all the other crazy crap.
You gotta wonder when it was that the first, we can call it, let's say, pre-industrial but still modern society really thought about it. It's wait a minute, these languages have been in place for longer than we've known time existed. How the hell are we supposed to translate this properly?
I have a more modern example that's pretty funny if you want to hear it. So there was a car called the Chevy Nova, right?
Yeah.
And so when they tried to market this car in South America, it would not sell at all, and they couldn't understand why at first, and then they realized that Nova, if you split it up into two words, no and va, in Spanish, that means it doesn't go. It means like
go.
does not
Yeah.
go.
Oh,
Yeah,
Nova.
that's
I see.
And so,
Yeah. Like,
So,
imagine if you just had a
Chevy
car
no-go.
that was.
Yeah.
You named it the Tesla broke piece of crap.
basically,
The Tesla engine exploder. Now with 50% more
Hey!
engine.
Yeah,
Hey,
don't give
Samsung's
Elon
getting
Musk
out of
any
your
ideas.
territory
Come
a
on, man.
little bit.
Yeah, don't. Let's not give Elon Musk any ideas. Okay.
Exactly.
Come on.
But no, there's so much hysterical stuff going on with translations. So that's why you get some of the more radical and weird monsters throughout history.
oh, actually, yeah, that is actually why in the, I think it's called like the Vulgate Bible.
In the Latin
Um,
Vulgate Bible.
in the Latin Vulgate Bible, there was a mistranslation from the original language. From I think it went from Greek into Latin, and it was mistranslated that they said on Moses's list of forbidden like foods that you're not supposed to eat, griffin meat was on there. Like that's listed in the Vulgate Bible, and that also contributed to why people thought they were, existing animals.
Happens a lot. And also, another problem with mistranslations is you get weird gaps in things where like things that are meant to mean, how to put this? If I say something is dog faced, it implies you know what a dog looks like.
Yeah.
Whereas if I tell you that something, just looks like a flim flam, you go like, what is a flim flam, sir? Like, oh yeah, it's got flim flam.
You don't know what a
qualities.
flim flam is?
Yeah. So
That's
now
why
go ahead, Pops.
that's why it's hilarious when people use the term "yay high." Like he's about yay high. Like you still have to.
You know what I'm
indicate
talking
your
about.
hand.
It's yay high.
Well, the thing is, so now you wonder: is yay a measurement, or is yay referencing something? That's a problem with a lot of these old way they wrote stuff down because they just wrote literally what they said, not trying to understand that people who weren't related to them wouldn't get it. That's why the oldest joke in history doesn't make any sense.
I do have to say, we know exactly how tall Ye is. Like, let me Google how tall
No, I
is
got
Ye.
you. Because it's always accompanied with like an indication with your hand,
Let's see.
which means like this. I don't know.
I think only Kid understands what I was
You're
saying.
gonna look up what yay means. How many is a yay in metric?
No, he's gonna look up how high Kanye West is.
Yeah, no, that's exactly 5'8", 5'8". I'm glad that Kid at least got it. Kid Pops is like, well, oh yeah, how are you gonna do it? And then Kid just Kid knows and he wants to, he wants to end the channel. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
I understood. I just didn't realize I was muted because I had to go up and get some water and turn off my lights.
Okay.
Nice.
But yeah, the oldest joke in history that we have, besides the one about farting into your husband's lap, is a dog enters an inn, enters an inn or brothel, doesn't see anything, and says, "Ah, I shall open this door." Like
What?
No, that's left.
I know. And people think, is this the first version of a priest, a rabbi, and a nun walk into a bar? Like, is this the opening line of one of those type of jokes? Because the second oldest joke in history, which we don't know if it might actually be older, is something has occurred today which has not occurred since time immemorial. A young woman did not fart in her husband's lap. Like, that's just one of the oldest jokes is like a dad joke, and the other one's a bar joke. We have never changed as humans.
My goodness.
Oh, we got a super coming in. I'm sweaty.
We got a super!
1 year is approximately 1488.
Jeez. No, you can't say that.
I can say anything. Buy your own super chat. Oh, YouTube's trying to tell me to buy myself out. No, YouTube, it stays. You got the money too, YouTube. You're at fault. Despite making up 0% of the content, YouTube's responsible for 30% of the money they steal from me. So that's 30% your comment too, YouTube.
Hooray!
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sweaty. Beautiful, beautiful. But yeah, so back to animals and creatures. When you try to design your own animals and creatures, like we said, go picking things from history is a great way to start, or picking creatures from the past that you could bring into the modern age. They give them a slight twist or tang on that. On that
Yeah.
subject, I want to bring up a special presentation that one of our lovely
presentation, you say?
Yeah,
Woohoo!
I'm going to have to pause the movie chat. I'm sorry. You're going to be looking
But
now.
kid, I was watching that.
PG, you're going to torpedo your credibility before your presentation even starts.
I don't have any credibility left.
All right. So here's a presentation from the Shoddy Strawman. He wants to talk about Design Principles 101. Shoddy, I suggest you get the PowerPoint up, and I'll tell you. You'll know exactly whenever I click the button, and you can tell me when to click it as well by just politely and subtly saying "click now."
Are you sure it's going to be that subtle though? Because I mean,
I think it can be. I don't think the chat will notice. And besides, if they
Okay.
notice, chat will tell us, because they'll let us know how nice and subtle we are. All right, I got the stream
yes.
up, so let me know when you're ready, boyo.
Sounds good. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my TED Talk about Design Principles 101. I am your principal and/or tutor or whoever. I'm the Shoddy Strawman. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Shoddy.
Hi. I really hope that. I hope Kid vetted this before this. Thank you for the vote of confidence, Maz. I really appreciate it.
I vetted none of this. This is 100% his. If you don't like it, go yell at him on his channel and tell him to put content out.
Exactly.
If you don't like this, actually just unsubscribe from his channel.
Actually, before you don't like this, like the video and leave a comment about how great I am and how much you don't like him.
Exactly.
Right, cool. I'll make sure to do that for you, Kid. It's currently not letting me, though, which is tragic.
It's okay. Just take us through your PowerPoint, my friend.
All right, hold on. Well, I hit the click, and I have to type in this comment so that everybody knows. I like this guy way more than the Shoddy Strawman. He is a hack writer and should be... I want to write something mean, but I don't think YouTube would like that, so...
But he should be dipped in cheese.
I'm pretty sure we got one yay is approximately 1488. So I don't know. I feel like you might be able to with that type of talk.
I don't know. So first and foremost, when you're designing things, you're going to have to use shape language. And the reason why people use shape language is that it's very easily identifiable and it's universal across basically every medium. And when you're designing creatures, you are going to be drawing from inspiration, but it also helps to... Kid, is it currently on there? Are you...
I don't forget.
Okay, good. But...
Yeah, you got your triangle, your square, and your circle on screen. Don't worry.
Yeah. And those are the three base ones. You have triangles, which are meant to be sharp, abrasive, and aggressive. And the main point of that is that they're showing strength, showing power. That's the point. You have squares, which typically are stalwart, sturdy, and dependable. You see like a lot of tanks and the like. They just sort of become giant, like a whole bunch of squares. Because it's a very solid, stalwart design. There isn't much that you can do to shake it. And then you have, in contrast to both of those, you have round, which is supposed to be friendly, comfy, and supportive. That's the main point of them. And the shape languages help you identify at a glance whether or not something wants to kill you, protect you, or be your friend. Or in some cases, all three at the same time. It depends on what your experience really is. Next slide, please. Jeeves? So I have Pokemon as the example because, wouldn't you know it, I have a Pokemon channel. Who could have seen that coming? Wowee. So we have ourselves Snorlax and Pikachu. I'm going with Gen 1 for this one because I feel like they were just the most easily identifiable. And Snorlax is arguably like the most identifiable out of like Pikachu. It's in like the top 10 or something of most identifiable Pokemon just because you can tell from a glance what exactly it's all about without me having to be like, hey guys, I want to tell you a TED Talk about this presentation. But I want to include it here because it's very simple and easy to understand. It's very round, which gives it very comfy and friendly vibes. And even though it has spikes on its hands and its feet, that's not the main focal point of the design. It's something you have to factor in whenever you come up with... Like, if you compare it to... Not a dragon.
So I want to say its feet spikes and hand spikes are still much rounder and not as obviously sharp as a lot of the other Pokemon features that you'll see in other
Yeah.
anime.
Yeah, exactly. It's meant to be very comfy, very cozy, and although, yes, it can absolutely kill you, that's less because it's actively trying to, and more just, it got so big that is... Oh, cripes. I wish I got the, there's the one picture of just the cat just resting on the Snorlax beanbag.
Yeah, well, like exactly that. It's Snorlax is such a big Pokemon, such a fat Pokemon that's always like laying around. I mean, half the times you meet it in Pokemon, it's not a Pokemon you can catch in the wild. It's because
Just chilling there
it's
in
just
the wild.
it's just chilling there. It's in the way. It's like I want to go forward, and this fat son of guns in the way, and you can't move him until you get like the I don't remember what
Flute and wake
whistle.
him up.
Yeah,
At
yeah,
which
the
point
flute.
he gets annoyed
Yeah, the
because
flute.
he woke him up.
Fun fact, that's also how me
Exactly.
and Des met in IRL for the first time.
Shut!
Yeah.
No, I don't believe you. And
Um,
then
yeah.
the other one is obviously Pikachu. It's the mascot of the series. It's iconic for a reason. Something I might discuss a bit later is color hierarchy, but also he's very pudgy. He's very cute. He's gotten thinner over the years, but if you see a original incarnation, he is just basically a circle that has
If you-
limbs.
you know,
Fat.
you mean
He was
the
very fat.
you mean
he was
the sprite from Red and Blue and like the very early cards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was just
he was
very
just-
chubby. He lost weight over the
Not
years.
only that, but I
Body
think even in the anime, I think he was a bit fatter. I could be
Yeah,
Well, that
but
yeah, that for sure.
I think that's
Yeah.
just a changing design philosophy, but he's very squishy. And
He still
there is a bit of edges in the tail, but the main body is very comfortable. Like it's not very threatening. It's very round, not very many harsh shapes. And the tail is meant to represent the fact that it's an electric type. And it looks like a lightning bolt. And it's just very well done design. And most of it is supposed to be this happy, cheery looking face. And I kind of want to bring it up, but I don't have it on screen. They have done a Pikachu for every single generation just because if we have this really cute circular electric type, everybody loves it. And they always have the Pika clone in every single generation just because the base design was that good. James? Or Javes? You know what? I'm paying you way too much. I don't care if I screw up your name. We have the dopey idiot, and then we have the tree. Correct? Correct, Jeeves? Very good, Jeeves. It's very great. You can't buy help like you nowadays. I think there are laws against them. But sturdy Pokemon. Des, we're gonna have to talk after this. I have to tell you, man, like, right now, like, like, come on, man. I thought we had this back from You know what? The less we talk about it, the better. So, Slowbro is very sturdy, and that's mainly because, like, yes, he is very rounded, and he just has this dopey-looking face of, like, but the main point is that he just has a very bulky body.
Well, you know what it is too. He has a very wide base.
Yeah, exactly. Compared to Pikachu and Snorlax. Well, Snorlax, you get sturdy because he's just that big. But Pikachu is very thin, very agile, whereas this guy's just he's just here to have a good time, man. But he's very stalwart because he's he's just kind of big, he's got a good base.
Yeah.
And
not only that, but it's a good contrast from the other evolution that Slowpoke can turn on into with Slowking, where like Slowbro keeps the same dopey smile with no thoughts behind those eyes as Slowpoke, where Slowking because of I forget just the shell I guess on its head, but because of
is it a cloister?
I don't think it's
no, it's I think it's a Shelter, and then it turns into that somehow.
It might be Shelter, you're right. But
yeah,
like because of the Shelter getting on the head instead of the tail, it then makes like Slowpoke smart instead of so instead of this very dopey Pokemon,
That's
no thoughts behind the eyes. It instead turns into this very regal and smart, and like even its stance in a lot of the games and in a lot of the artwork, it's much more regal and yeah.
There might be some philosophical questions to unpack in that case, since it's possessing his brain essentially.
Yes, quite, but of course. But he's very chunky. He's not very nimble. And that gives the good impression that it's sturdy and it's a wall and it's very hard to break through. Similar with Sudowoodo, because it's literally a tree, and yes, it is kind of spindly, but that's because it's the Pokemon design. They're trying to make it look nice, look very approachable, look friendly, but also it's just straight up and down. It's like a trunk of a tree, which is very sturdy. It's very hard to move over. That's the point of it. And both of these are very square-shaped and represent this pretty well. Like, obviously, they have more design elements here than just strictly that, because you have the roundedness to sort of endear you to Slowbro. I keep forgetting its name for a second. And then you have, like, the little tree hands for Sudowoodo, and, like, the little limbs.
The cool thing with the design of Sudowoodo and it's not Bronzely. What's the pre-evolution of?
It's Bonsly.
Bonsly.
Although that one looks much more like a baby. Although I think
Well,
that's meant to be like.
It's basically one of the baby Pokemon. But like the cool thing with it is that like despite both of them, like with Sudowoodo, you have this kind of it's much more slender than the of course on the left with the Slowbro, but it's a rock type Pokemon, and part of that is cool because like you look at it and you're like, oh, it's a tree. Like your immediate thought is like it's a tree. It's gonna be like grass type, but it's a rock type.
It's just a rock that looks like it.
Exactly.
And that also
That's
further
what's cool
incentivizes that it's just the trunk. It doesn't have a lot on like the leafage or the foliage. So it's a lot less of like this very fancy, very dressy. It's much more simple, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It keeps it very centered on this is a tree trunk. It's just very solid.
Yeah. Well, it's cool for two reasons. Because it does that, where it has this, but it serves two purposes. One, it makes it very humorous a lot of times when it shows up in like the show and stuff. Because then, or even in the games, because like then you see its weight, and there's like maybe 3 moves where like weight is a factor, but like. You look at the weight; it's so disproportionate. Then, like the slender, small baby, with the baby one, the baby look, because you expect to be light, and instead it's like super heavy.
Yeah,
I love Pokemon weight logic. Did you know that Wailord is always lighter than air?
Oh yeah, dude, Wailord's insane. Wailord's
great.
It's so great.
The weirdest dimensions of anything. And everyone knows.
Don't ask what that Wailord is doing with that skitty. Just don't ask.
No,
don't.
Shut up. We're not getting into that. Shut up. Yes, Pops.
I said I wasn't going to say that. But anyway, yeah. As a boomer, I can tell you the surprise of Sudowoodo being a rock type. It hits you like a train. It was hilarious.
Well, that's the thing that's cool too. It gives a kind of like it mimics nature in the way that like a lot of animals, tying back into what this whole topic was, supposed to be, or kind of tying back into it as like a fantasy thing. You understand immediately, or like if you have any understanding of like how some animals work, it makes perfect sense because it's literally like how a lot of animals will like mimic, make either predators or prey, or sometimes both. Like they'll mimic innocuous things and mimic them and Sudowoodo actually does that a lot in the games as well, because Sudowoodo, like Snorlax, a lot of the times, correct me if I'm wrong, Garbled, but it's been a while since I played the games, but I'm pretty sure Sudowoodo occasionally will show up, I think in Gen 2, or at very least in the Gen 4
it just
remake
becomes
of
the
Gen
tree.
Yeah, he's just a tree. He's just a tree.
Water it so that way it gets annoyed and it'll actually
water.
move.
Yes, exactly.
That's the whole.
Okay.
He was, he was a blocking the thing that blocked you in the forest. Yeah, in
Yeah.
Gen.
I
He
mean,
was introduced-
literally the same way as Snorlax, where it's like,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, here's this random Pokemon with the Suworo. Of course, it's really cool because you're right. Yeah, you don't even see it as a Pokemon. It's just like random tree, and then you're like, I don't know. I got this water bucket. I guess I'll try that. You know, and then it turns out to be Suworo Pokemon because it gets annoyed. Yeah.
There you go. Jeeves, could you go to the next slide, please?
There we go.
Thank you very much, Jeeves. I will make sure that you and your family have a prosperous life here in America. For your services!
All right.
Was there a problem? Do you have
PowerPointing?
aggressive Pokemon? Do you know how there's dragons? What if we just gave this one 2 axes on its face?
Let me tell you one thing too. You notice right away they have that forward stance too. It's aggressive, like leaning forward into you.
Yeah, it's the very aggressive posing, but it's also it's very sharp. There's a lot of edges on. Haxorus just has battle axe for a mouth, which is glorious. I love seeing it.
The previous 2 evolutions, you know, have that design, but I mean the first one, I forget the name, but it's so
Axew.
Axew is so small, it's almost like that baby Pokemon where it's like, oh, you know, it's a little threat. The second one's a bit bigger, but it's still, I wouldn't say it's too, you know, its design is all right, but I mean Haxorus, like it's such a cool design. I do love the design. Gen 5 has a lot of
It has
fantastic
so many bangers,
design.
man.
It has so many bangers, and Haxorus is
It's-
absolutely one of
Yeah.
them.
And even though you have a lot of smooth, very like it's got a smooth tail and it's got like small stubby arms, the main focal point of the design is the edge in the head. Now, obviously, it's like, oh, ow, the edge! Oh my god, edgy the hedgy. But
It is red and black.
Right.
yeah,
But if I can second, I think Gen 5 has an even better design for an aggressive Pokemon, and that's Zebstrika, which is essentially a zebra. Stripes are all lightning bolts.
oh,
And I think
You're right,
Zebstrika
you're right.
guys.
you're right. No, Zebstrika is a very good example, but I don't have it here. I wasn't thinking of Gen 5. It's just that Haxorus just sort of immediately came to mind.
I mean, like with Gen 5, honestly, it's one of the better generations to look at like this type of stuff because they, you know, with the way they did Gen 5, where, you know,
It really took off with the animation style.
yeah, like the Pokemon designs are almost all fantastic. I love almost all of them. There's like maybe 2 or 3 I don't like, but
No,
like
There's a few.
all, yeah, most, like, the game has so many new Pokemon, especially after Gen 4, and I love Gen 4. But Gen 4 doesn't like hold a candle to how many new Pokemon there are. Especially since Gen 4, a lot of the design philosophy seemed to be like, let's add stuff on top of stuff we've already built, you know, adding either pre-evolutions or, you know, different evolutions or side evolutions with stuff like Gallade or Frostlass. And I love both of those Pokemon. They're awesome Pokemon.
Oh yeah, with the special items and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, where
just don't,
you use
Des,
a
don't
lot
show
of
me your
special
internet
items.
history. Don't show me your internet history. That's all.
Okay, look, I'm not. Banary was a mistake. Banary was a mistake. Banary was
let's get
very.
back to the topic here.
Look, hey, I was not the first one who brought up this type of
I
stuff.
know, but
Right, let's
like,
get back on topic, boys. Come on.
let's get back on topic here. We
Alright,
have Tyranitar on the right, and he's meant to be a Godzilla reference. Don't tell Rooney. But he just looks so wonderful, and it's very clear what he's trying to get at because of all of the spikes, making him very aggressive. You don't want to touch him. He can and will kill you in multiple ways. Depends. But he's also very tall and very, like, sort of sturdy in the same way that Sudowoodo was, in that sort of, like, box. Whereas Haxorus over here is a little bit more sleek. There is a bit of bulk here, but it's not in the same way as Sudowoodo before it. It's much more of like a triangle shape. Now, obviously, this isn't like perfect, but if you... I wish I could draw on this, because then you can have like the... Have you ever seen like the really muscly anime characters where they have like absurd rippling muscles? And
Do you
it's
have any
like all
idea
focused
how
on the
real that
shoulders?
is now?
So Maz left a great comment. He says, "I want to kill you with rocks, Garbled. You said there wouldn't be any Pokemon. I'm going to go jump off a cliff now. Thank you."
Okay, all right,
Where does he say
wonderful.
that?
Yeah,
Shut
let
up,
me
Maz.
say-
That's where he says it.
Okay.
Exactly, dude. That's why the Shreddy Shroman's a hack writer, man. He's just so
So
bad at his
true.
job.
Yeah.
It's all good, man.
So-
Tyranitar is still
We
my,
got it.
still my favorite.
Exactly.
Well, I was
Yeah.
gonna say a cool thing too is that the pre-evolution is like of good. It ties in enough with what it Tyranitar becomes, but it's also very interesting because it's a cocoon. How like small, diminutive, like not very threatening the previous evolution is to where with this
Well, he's
final
still,
one, it. Mhm.
You mean Larvitar? He still has that
Yes,
kind of
Larvitar. Yeah. Or
He
is
still kind
Larvitar
of
the
has
first?
that. Yeah, he still kind of has that like menacing look. And dude, the dark ground type combination was awesome. And he does
Yeah.
learn. He can learn quite a few like one hit KO moves and things like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
especially after Dragonite, I mean, having something that actually looked that menacing, that was that powerful, I thought was awesome. Well, I'm old, you know.
Next slide, Garble.
I'm ready, Jeeves. Please, Gigas. Because we have to talk about the most important man in all of Pokemon, Bob Ross.
That's true.
Don't ask me to explain that. I'm not going to.
I assume the next slide about colors here. We want to talk
Yes, color theory. So you can go to the next slide. Jeeves. My first book of colors. As well as just the general color wheel of where things come together. But warm and cool colors can be used to identify whether or not something is very aggressive or very passive. And it depends on where you use it. So you have yellow there. That one's much more of like a happy, bright, cheerful sort of warm color. But if you go to more of red, it's much more of an aggressive, very fighty color. As we saw with like Haxorus's, what is it? Axe mutton chops? I don't know what else to call them. But that's very deep red. As
like
if it is
That was, I would say it was a scythe.
something like that. Point
Yeah.
is, it's very red and it's very black for the express purpose of showing this very heavy contrast of this red is meant to show you that this can and will kill you.
Yes. Purple ghosts. I agree, Maz.
You know what else that
Purple
has to do
ghosts.
with, if we can tie it back to designing. Yeah, that also is like the way that you would think of like a poison dart frog, the way that people, you can, they warn people away with the bright colors, but at the same time you can use them for resources.
Yeah.
Like Mitch was saying before, the way that, it's important to have some sort of resource or, magical property from something that you can get from your creatures to kind of make them a little more, like something that you'd want to engage with.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's important. I think if you tie it into your culture, then it's something that people appreciate because I wish I had an example of this, but there are ways to do it where it just feels tacked on. It's like, oh yeah, here's this cool creature I designed. Also, it fulfills this role in whatever. It's possible to pigeonhole it, essentially. As with most
example
things.
of that is Appa from Avatar. He's just pigeonholed as kind of like the car. So anytime you see them in the sequel series, they're always as transport, even though that's not what they were beforehand. They were just kind of animals they hung out with.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the other thing is that it reminded me in the first series, Appa was very much like the last of his kind that was seen. So it's like, yeah, he's just our friend. We're not, we don't hunt flying bison.
And just again, but like in the sequel series, they just had him find a mate off screen, reproduce the entire global population, and now they're all taxis. It's very weird.
Exactly.
Very just sucks.
Could you go back to slide 3, please, Jeeves?
Done.
So when we have Snorlax and Pikachu, and we look at their color schemes again, although Snorlax does have like this kind of greenish dark blue color, the main thing that you see is the white of the stomach, the white of his face, and it's very warm. It's very inviting. It's not very threatening as compared to, we'll get to slide 5 a little bit later, but like it's not very aggressive. He's very passive. He's very comfy. He's very much there to be your little friend so that way you can go and take a nap on his stomach because he's just that nice. And Pikachu does it in a very similar way. He's yellow and he's red. He's very vibrant. He's very happy. He's not very dour. He's became the mascot of the series for a reason because he's just such a tiny little cutie and he makes me look happy when I look at him because he's just so warm and fuzzy. That's the point.
Do you think that was even more kind of like beat into you, as far as like the implication that he didn't want to evolve into Raichu in the series? Like it kind of
Pops, what are you
solidified.
talking about?
It kind of solidified.
Pops, we're talking about design aspects here. What are you talking about, though?
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
It solidified the fact that he was like the mascot, like he wasn't going to change in that way.
No,
I think I
that's
agree,
hard to
Pops.
justify because mascots of a series, like especially in Pokemon, it's very hard to be like, yes, this one was the mascot one because I'm pretty sure they originally tried to make it Clefairy. It wasn't just Pikachu right off the bat. They just sort of chose that one because it just worked really well and then just kept going from there.
I'm saying it helped to reinforce it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Garble, who's on this slide 8? I really want to show the chat that. Can we go to that?
Yeah, that one's good. These are characters from Deadlock because I can't stop myself from playing that game. It's a bit of a problem, kid.
See, that's
I've had like
perfectly
560 hours, kid. Don't get into
Alright,
MOBAs.
so tell me who Sherlock Femboy is and why Mr. Half-Orc is on the screen.
Sherlock Femboy?
Yes, explain this to me, Garble.
Well, it's the cool versus warm color schemes. The cool color schemes here are meant to represent sort of a distance. On the left side, it's meant to be much more faded. It's not very warm and welcoming. It's meant to be that you're supposed to stay away. Do not get close. This is not going to be Joe Schmo, who's very much here to help you out. It's a cold color scheme. It's very dark, very dour. And that fits Pocket's character of... I don't know how much I want to get into the lore. But essentially, what?
You can say it fits his character style.
Yeah. Well, the entire point of his play style is run and gun in the sense of be very evasive, don't get caught, leave me alone. And in the lore, imagine that you were on the run for 5 years because your father, who owns a corporation, gave you the best 18th the best present anybody could get for their 18th birthday, a bullet straight to the head. So they very much don't want it, like you don't want to be around them and he doesn't want to be around you. Simple as. But you can also use the cool color scheme to highlight intelligence because we have Mr. Detective over here. He's blue. He's got this really cool book. He's got a snub-nosed revolver. I'm not sure if it's actually a snub-nose, but it's a revolver, and the entire point that you're trying to get out of this is that he's a very calm and collected detective he's having a bit of a rough spot right now, but because of the cool color scheme, it makes him seem very composed because that's what blue is meant to be. It's supposed to be patient, intelligence. It helps you understand the character without me going into what he's doing and what his backstory is.
I don't know enough about this setting to comment on it, but it looks cool, and I got
Yeah.
all the things you're putting into.
Yeah, and the main reason why I'm bringing up color schemes and shape design is, and maybe we can get some more images afterwards, is that these are the fundamental building blocks of the visual representation of your creatures. And when
Is
you're
that the
writing,
warm
of
color
course,
schemes over here. Is it the next slide? You want to show that too?
yeah, that's the warm color schemes, as well as the shape language of. Left side of cool color schemes was very angular, whereas right side is much more square.
Expect the guy on the right to have more health, and the guy on the left to be more about dodging, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have warmer color schemes. So on the left we have Shiv, that's his name. He's meant to cut people up to ribbons, and he has these very vibrant red pants, as well as like a white jacket on top and a pompadour. And the main reason why I'm bringing up that warm... Oh my god. No, okay, hold on. No, it's fine. But the main reason why I'm bringing up the warm color scheme is that he's very aggressive, but he's also very... I don't want to say above board. I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it. I'll come back to it in a second.
Pose,
But
you got good angles and stuff. I got you.
yeah, and it also fits into the shape example because he's very angular. He's not terribly lanky, but it's clear that he's well built, and he also has an entire shotgun in his hand. He has a pompadour. He's very much meant to be aggressive and kill you.
He's here for business. You can tell by his sharp looks.
Maybe to tie
Yes.
it into creature design, if you just look at the distinction between these two characters' shoes, and I know that sounds like a minor detail, but
No, it's important.
taken in totality with the rest of them, I think it makes it pretty clear what's up. Shiv's he doesn't have too many, it's not a great point on his shoe, but compared to Mr. Dynamo over there.
So this guy's name is Dynamo and Shiv. Okay. So build on your point, Mitch. Shiv over here his shoes are straight, they're angular, and the bottom of them is a different color than the top of them. You know, and the fact that the bottom of them has this like heel on it, which is necessarily made for like stomping and having a much more hard press downwards. That shows that these shoes are much more for like working in business and like crushing stuff. Whereas Mr. Dynamo shoes look more like an average person's shoes. Maybe you have like a work shoes for like a construction guy, but that's nowhere near the stomping shoe that Shiv over here has. Those shoes are made for like ground pounding.
I was more appealing to the point of the toe, but I think you took it even a step further than I did.
Well, you know what's funny about it? It also plays into when you hear the descriptions of all these like fantasy creatures. A lot of the time, especially if they're inspired from the old school stuff, they'll mention like it had the claws of an eagle on its front feet, or it had like the hind legs of an ox or something like that with the hooves and everything. I mean, it's definitely something to consider.
Do you think, Pops, that one of the reasons it helps people imagine on their own how the creatures might ambulate, how they might move around?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You describe the body of a griffin, and so it's this eagle-headed thing that has wings and it has legs. And you think, okay. Do I tell you it's like, well, is it usually eagle claws on the front and then
the lion's paws, yeah. Well, sometimes, I mean, there's like reverse versions. The way that it transformed, like in description over time, is pretty ridiculous. But yeah, you're basically pretty much what you're saying. I've heard it said that the lion's paws are on the front and then it grips things when it flies down with the eagle's claws on the back. But either way, I've heard it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to say that, and maybe I'm making too much out of this, but when it comes to even smaller details like the feet and the way, we'll stick on the feet of your creature.
I do think, like, instinctively, this is something that most people probably kind of just consider anyway when they're doing some sort of character design. Like, they especially something like this, like, you are going to focus on the type of shoes that the guy's wearing because it, like, also has a role to play within the, the overall shape of him.
Sure. I think the deeper point, if it can be called the deeper point, is that when you're trying to give people an image of your creature, starting with something like the way it moves around, or that it lets people animate the creatures on their own in their own head.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I'm getting at with these color schemes and shape language, is that it's all an intention of what do you want this creature to be, how do you want it to act, what do you want it to reflect to other people on a glance. And not all stories are going to need these in-depth explanations of like, well, my dragon, it's actually orange because it's meant to represent the hope that never dies, and the flames are meant to be like all that sorts of stuff. This is more of, you don't always have to publish everything when it comes to like your works. If you want to have this design in your head that works really well, if this is how I want the dragons to operate and then described accordingly, you're going to have to think of, is it a warm or a cold color scheme? Are we thinking of this as a very welcoming presence of, oh, it's the dragon that saved us all from everybody in the world, and, well, I like putting out random words. I can't speak sometimes.
It's okay, Garbled. You did a good job with your presentation, buddy. We had the most viewers during your presentation we had all podcast. So,
awesome.
We're going to end the stream now. Not the stream, the Garbled's PowerPoint.
That's
fine. Put the movie back on the screen.
Yeah, just the point that I'm getting at is...
Chat real quick. So, first of all, Maz has been completely correct that Pikachu will electrocute the absolute crap out of you. He's a naughty boy. We don't stand Pikachu here. He's very mean and he electrocutes me. Second, I want to answer a few questions from Future Wario. First of all, the rat people that you designed, that's kind of sounds like the Yosogi from Pathfinder, or the rat folk from D&D, or even the Skaven to an extent, but less evil. Because I see a lot of rat people have that same energy. So that's not a bad idea. Go ahead, Pops.
I think what he's describing a lot of the time is like the way that people used to look at ants. But you know how they would exist in those kind of super cities of their own making and things like that. Like bees too, I think, to an extent.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that also working as a good allegory anagram type thing.
I mean, yeah, rats. I don't know. It's kind of more like because for all of human history, rats were looked at as disease spreaders and kind of bad things. It's always kind of weird to introduce them as more sympathetic. I don't know, just as a marketability thing. But yeah, more recently, I mean, people keep them as pets and stuff.
The way I describe the thing that I immediately thought of when he described his rat race was the description of the rat race in Wizardry 8 in the Zazintech video. You know, where it's basically like, you know, they're Italian. They're Italian mobsters. They help you. They help you against space Darth Vader. We'll say.
You know what's funny? Did they do that in Zootopia, or was that mice?
They were more like moles than rats. That was more of a mole people than or mole or like vole, like that type of like, you know.
Yeah, I don't watch
really
it at all.
All right, so hey, I gotta say something. Future Wario, we already said why we're not gonna go to your DeviantArt, buddy. I'm not gonna show it on stream until I've had a chance to review it offline. I don't want to broadcast it to hundreds of people. It's not very fair. A lot of people aren't ready for that level of attention and criticism, because you know we might not be. If we're gonna go on there and you want actual criticism, we're gonna give criticism. We're not just gonna glaze you. You know, I like you as a I like your chats and stuff here, and I don't want you to feel like people are getting hostile against you. I haven't looked yet. Anybody who shows their content on here goes into it with weeks of prep work. You know, you could ask Legacy. You could ask him in my server. I talked to him for about 4 or 5 weeks before he showed up here, telling him what to be prepared for, telling him how, what he should talk about, explaining to him the blowback that could happen. This is a public forum. I don't patrol or control people's comments here. I'm not gonna, I don't have live top chat on. I have live chat on. People can say what they want here. It's not my account that's gonna get in trouble with them. So I don't want you to feel like you're going to be attacked by people. Some people in the audience are not going to be as nice as the rest of us here will be. And like I said, me and Pops, when we are asked to criticize and look at stuff, we give you what it is. We don't, sugarcoat things. And my chat just crashed. It's okay.
Nice.
We'll be back in a second.
The one exception I think that we did make was an exception, which was Freaky Nanya. What was his name?
Freaky Nanya, that guy.
He attacked Rooney. So he did.
Well, yeah, no. Well, that's what I mean though. Like we didn't review Rooney's thing, but like half of that stream did turn into criticizing Rooney.
Also knows, and Rooney put it out publicly. He knows.
Well, that's because
people on Twitter all the time, and it's already was public.
That's because we were treating. That's because we were treating him honestly. Like anytime he did.
Well, no. I'm not.
Yeah.
No. I'm just saying we didn't give Rooney the warning type thing. Like that was the one exception. That's what I was saying.
But Rooney knew what going into it. He already had it online.
Yeah, Rooney.
No,
I'm not gonna. People that we talk about who put videos out, you kind of know videos are coming out. But someone like you, Future Wario, I don't want to throw that level of attention at you without you, kind of being prepped for it. I've seen other shows where people. I'll just say I've seen EFAP. I've watched them. I've seen what happened when Southpaw went on there, his extreme meltdown. I mean, he got a little bit of fame. Or, what's his face, Doomer. I saw Doomer meltdown. Like, I've seen far too many people get online, get a modicum of pushback, and have a complete pants-crapping meltdown where they ruin their lives and try to kill everybody involved. There's another person who we're not going to name who's been on the show before that's had that happen to them, too. They try to get even banned from Discord. And I don't want to, that was somebody I thought was a friend. I don't know you, Future Wario, very well outside of the comments you leave, which I appreciate. But I don't want to introduce you to that level of problems and drama.
Yeah,
we're not. Question though. Go ahead, Pops.
Yeah. We're not saying that that's going to happen, and we're not saying that we expect that to happen. But
I just don't want to risk it. It's not, to me, it's not worth the risk of that, and I don't want anybody to come at you. You're a nice guy so far. But we will fully answer the next question you have. How do you think of a name for a new fantasy creature or fantasy race? This is one of my favorite things to do. If you are truly creating something new from scratch, then you want to try to come up with a name that embodies the form of it. I'll tell you right now, one of my fantasy races that I have is a group of crocodile people called the Boyan. What this is I wanted to have a race that exists in sort of the tropical jungles of Southeast Asia, while also taking cultural aspects from Hawaiians. The idea is if you took Hawaiians but gave them bigger islands, kind of. So, by the way, hi Zimzilla. Are we showing off fantasy creatures, showing off stuff to get showed for the stream? It's okay, Zim. Basically, the stream is we were just talking about how do you create fantasy creatures. We were talking about how people design them and some inspirations you get, as well as what are great historical things to look at for fantasy creatures. And we're just answering Future Warriors' question right now about how do you come with a name. So how I came with the Boyan name specifically is I wanted to inspire that. So I went and listened to several Indonesian words related to alligator, related to crocodile. I listened to some Maori and some Hawaiian words. And I found that boya, which was Indonesian for water, worked really well. And by adding an N to it, it signifies it's a people, it's a group. So that literally translates to the waters, or watermen, if you will, in Indonesian. That word, I feel, works really well for the crocodile people. It doubly works well because since it translates as the watermen, in my setting, before they became crocodile people, they were originally humans that a wizard, corrupted them and fused with crocodiles. So they were called the watermen beforehand, if you will, and then they got turned into the crocodile people afterwards. That theming really fits well with the idea of how the people are, how they're kind of emerging of a real thing and a fake thing. The word water and the added N, as well as crocodile and man.
Yeah, I would say
It's a very
if you
cool race with a lot of cool mechanics, I will say.
I would say is specifically if you wanted kind of a little guidance with a name, I would say kind of figure out what you want to represent with that thing. And if you've read about it, great. If you haven't, read about it. I mean, a lot of stuff, pretty much these guys know. I'm obsessed with references. Pretty much all the stuff that I use for kind of inspiration is a reference from something else. So I'm
Say
names are
good
no-
reference.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say a
what's
good
the
reference
phrase?
for
Good artists borrow, great artists steal.
Yeah,
Basic.
Farius?
it-
You better send a super
Yeah.
chat if you're going to start getting jokes like that, buddy. But Sweaty got away with it because he gave $10.
Oh my goodness.
Hey,
I definitely think that's very applicable. I mean, a lot of it's one of the easiest ways to think of a name is just if you, like Kid was doing, go to the specific area or culture you want to represent, kind of be like the pseudo
Something similar or
version of.
nearby.
Yeah, and then take something something from that language, whether that be, I think you're saying like the water people, take something from that, or take something for alligator, or just do something like George Lucas. You have some space Germans, just use the name for the elite troops of the space Germans, and it's an iconic name for because it's a really cool name for a villain or a soldier. Stormtroopers is awesome. It's just an awesome name for soldiers.
Can I contribute another personal anecdote here? Just because I think I have a bit more of a creature-focused example. So in one of my settings, the way that metal is obtained in the world is that you hunt a certain subspecies or what have you of animals called Orbeez. And what I thought was, well, it's really cool that I have these creatures camouflaged and that they're shiny, so they blend into these dense jungles that they live in and whatnot. But because I limited myself with that idea, where I said, well, their skin's basically just mercury, so you're not going to get much out of them visually. I said, okay, I need to be very good and very deliberate about the names here. So I think, okay, I want to describe how these creatures move. So I came up with names like Tin Prancer and Copper Creep, which I think helps complete the image with just those two sets of details. So when you're, and as you might imagine, the Orbeez all have some sort of real-life counterpart. Tin Prancers are more based off of goats, and Copper Creeps on the likes of tree-dwelling mammals and arachnids. So I think I would say it's more important to draw a few things together from the real world. But if you're looking for fauna specifically, it might be a good place to start, at least to have an idea of an evocative name in a sense, which I think is sort of what Kid was talking about with the Indonesian word for water and how that inspired the Bayern. Did I get that right? Yeah.
So another thing I want to go off of, another famous example I think will help chat, especially knowing this. If you look at Dune and the Butlerian Jihad, that's a very evocative in thing. Even people who don't know a lot about Dune know that single thing. The reason is because Butlerian is a reference to the author Samuel Butler, who wrote a novel about people who rose up and destroyed machines and technology because they feared to be out-evolved by them. That's a really cool and interesting reference. So you take the word Butler from Samuel Butler, and you add the "ian" at the end of it to make it an adjective, a thing, a people, a groups. And now all of a sudden, bam, you have the Butlerian Jihad. So you take that idea and take it as a reference. That's why you have a lot of these words and phrases that in your real life, that's how they develop. So why not take it as your fantasy thing and do that? Another cool thing is I really like the name, but I don't like their implementation. The Terramorphs from what's the crappy game that Todd Howard just released? Starfield. Cool name. Really cool name for a creature, I think. It's sci-fi sounding and gets the image across. But, I don't think it really... The creature they show doesn't capture it well enough. The description is fantastic, but it doesn't capture it. So when you're trying to come up with a name, go off of something like that. Or another good thing that you can do, take a single aspect of that creature, and that's what people would name it off of. For example, if you don't know, the word bear is not actually the word for bear. The word for bear means brown. The original word for bear is Ursa, which is where the colony Ursus Major and Ursus Minor, the stars. However, people were afraid that because words had power, that's why spelling is spelling your letters out and also writing, because this is you summoning things into the world. If you started going around saying bear, 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 you'd summon a bear. So they're like, oh shit, we better not do that. I know what we'll do. We'll call it the brown thing. We don't speak of the brown thing or the brown furred one. And that just over time, people forgot that, brown furred one just means bear anyway. So we're just going to call it a bear. It's very much like how cotton swabs are now Q-tips and disposable paper, soft paper products and tissues are Kleenexes. Or building block constructions out of plastic are Lego. They've taken on the word of the object.
Yeah,
Jeez, I said it. I said it that way. Adhesive band, adhesive. What's the adhesive? Whatever.
Adhesive medical strips.
Yeah, adhesive medical strips really rolls off the tongue.
Yeah,
or bandages.
That's one way that slang can develop, definitely.
And that's what most animals are. They're just slangs.
The original was Bruin, right? It was something like that, like Bruin or Bruin.
It goes Ursa to Bruin, which became brown and bear. And funny, that's why berserker doesn't mean angry guy. It means bear skin wearer, because to wear the skin of a bear, you have to kill it. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, so that's why you get Volsterker as well. It's a lower title. It's those who are in training, because you had to kill a wolf to become that. Which now, just by those two words alone, you can imply that if you have a guy named the Draxzerker, that's a dude who killed a dragon. Just that alone sets up an entire new fantasy situation for your barbarians. You just take, because you could have, what if you had a gators, a Krokzerker? That just tells you the guy killed a crocodile and is wearing a skin. The idea of this one word from Norse myth that got emblazoned into the English language because they kept destroying their monasteries. You just go back and research where that word come from and how it turned into it. I'm going to give you another example. There are two gods in my settings whose name I absolutely am permanently in love with. The first one is probably the most famous in my setting of all the players. His name is Jack. The reason his name is Jack, Jack is everybody loves him.
Instant.
Well, it's so the image I pulled from is he looks like Jack of Blades from Fable, because I always found that the way Jack of Blades looks with the mask and the hood to be just instantly recognizably iconic, and then Fable did fucking nothing with it because Fable sucks. Fable had one good game and 5 half-good games, and they ruined the franchise. But that's a different story. One day we'll do a podcast on Fable. When the new game comes out, it's horrible and we'll warp into it. Don't worry, chat. But anyway, so Fable had that. And they did nothing with him, so I always liked that character. And I found out from an interview the reason they named him Jack is because they wanted him to be from the like a suit of cards, the Jack. So it goes to the Queen, the King, the Queen, and the Jack. Okay, well, where does the term Jack come from for cards? Jack's not actually the original name of the card. It was supposed to be the Knight. So it's supposed to be the King, the Queen, and the Knight. Makes sense. However, people are stupid. So instead of just having these images, they started saying, well, we should probably just print letters on the cards to make it easier for people to read. And you already have the K as the king. He's more important. So what do you have as? So what do you have the Knight? Well, you just have it as a G for just guy. Well, G looks, kind of close to Q, and it's also a little bit weird. So some people would call their just phrase for just a guy a Jack, because that was a phrase in the 16 and 1700s. You just said, hey, Jack, if it was anybody you wanted to talk to. You probably still hear this if you play some old cowboy games and listen to some old cowboy media. They'll say that to people a lot back then, too, because that phrase carried over. What's up,
or if you would listen to the song by Ray Charles.
Yes. Exactly.
Hit the road, Jack. Yeah.
And don't come back.
Exactly. Or if you've just heard Joe Biden talk.
Exactly.
Then you'll also hear Jack.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And on top of that, almost every single mythological story where the main male character doesn't matter, he's Jack. Jack and the Beanstalk, Jack and the Candlestick, Jack and Jill. All these stories with that Jack. And knowing that, this character, Jack, if you will, he's completely amorphous, transcends all different dimensions, he's everywhere, and nobody knows about him, and that's the type of character that the god I'm designing is. So naming him Jack fits, and he's also the god of luck. So you're just having a beer with your buddy Jack when you're rolling for some luck. And, when you get jacked up, that phrase, it works well in this setting too. I put a lot of thought into this idea, and it's just because I was curious about where does a word Jack come from, and took it and just popped it into my setting. Whenever you're designing things for your own world, words like that are phenomenal. Also, dead languages. Going to the second deity I really want to talk about, Legan. So Legan is an ancient English word for liar. In my setting, his name is Legan, the diseased deceiver. He's all about lies and what are in diseases. Because what are lies but diseases that your mouth can speak? I think it's really kind of cool. And I think that his imagery of him, having a plague rat and whispering, nothingness and disease into the setting, it fits him really well. And Legan became an insult in English. It became a thing that fell out of fashion because besides meaning just liar, it was something that they'd tell people who pretended to not have leprosy who did. That was an insult they threw at them. So that's why when I saw that word, I'm like, this is my word right here. It means diseases, and it means like liar or villainous. Spark.
Yeah, double entendre? Well, not like dual meaning.
Yeah, it's got all the meanings I need. And this is what Tolkien also did. Now, Tolkien smoked a whole bunch of meth, and he created 5 different languages that had the languages interact with each other to have subtle meanings come out of them. Like, there's a good example of this is the River Avon in England is the dumbest name ever if you translate it. Because the river, is the word river. We know what a river is. What is the word Avon? Well, it's Celtic for river. Because when the Romans showed up, they said, hey, Celts, what's that? And the Celts like, it's a river, dumbass. And the Romans like, oh, a river? Well, it's the river. Excellent. This is
I got a good one.
Yeah. Native Americans also did this all the time. If you translate Native American words for almost everything, it's something stupid and basic, like the forest or the mountain. Because, because what happened is the white people walked up and said, Native American fellers, what is this thing here? And they looked at them like they're stupid, like, it's a mountain, dumbass. And they're like, the mountain, excellent. Because they didn't understand it. It's so beautiful. It's great.
The best example of that is the fact that a lot of the names of the tribes that we know of, for example, like the Lenape, like what the name of the tribe means in their own language literally is just the people. So like Lenni Lenape means like the people, and we call them the Lenni Lenape tribe, and we're just in their own language it's just the people tribe. They're just the people.
Or another one, is funny one. I think is it the Algonquin? is the Iroquois
Uh,
word for the enemy. It's one of those, or Iroquois is the word
Oh,
for
yeah.
the enemy. It's just like
Yeah.
one of those people called. Well, they're the enemies. Oh, okay, you got it, boss. So if you translate all the Native American words like
Oh, yeah.
literally, it's the funniest stuff ever. Because like, oh yeah, we went up to the big mountain to fight the enemies today. It's
That's one
awesome.
reason. That's exactly one reason why in a certain book that I like, the way that the enemy is used over and over is great because it's about the Apaches, and so the word Apache comes from a Spanish like mistranslation of the word Apachu, which is from some native language in that area. Yeah, Apachu, and it literally means the enemy. And the Apaches, they're not actually like their own tribe. It's a language family of like related tribes that controlled a certain area in the Southwest. But among them, there's like the Mescaleros and this and that.
Among them.
Yeah. So among us, it was the Chiricahuas.
Get out of my head! Get out of my head! Get out of my head!
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny because they just get called Apaches, but the word Apache just meant enemy.
Yep. And I want to quickly just top of the chat for a sec, Pops. To Donald Farias, I got to read the Wolf Among Us comics as well because that game was really awesome. And also to say there's a hill that's called the Hill. Yeah, that happens all the time as well. It's very funny. I just wanted to let chat know we still love them, Pops.
Oh, shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat for hanging in there with us. Now, we're going over that. Is there anything else on names? Because I do want to touch on like environmental factors that come into design.
We could. I think that's to me. I don't know, Chad. If you need help with this, obviously we can maybe do another show on environments and how you should design them. But to me, environments are basically obvious. There's anywhere between 5 and I think 20 actual biomes. I know most of the biomes are the same. Like, chat,
What
I'm not
about
gonna
Mushroom Island?
I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire if you don't know the difference between a coniferous rainforest, a tropical rainforest, and a subtropical rainforest. It's wet and hot. That's all you need to know. So if you want to talk about though how creatures can, like, how do I put this?
But evolve?
Yeah, if you want to talk about certain evolutionary traits that you should go off of an environment, that's something we could definitely do.
Okay.
But I think just saying like, why do chickens exist or horses exist in the plains? If you have a horse-like creature exists in the plains, that's kind of obvious to me. But if there's like a specific thing you want to bring up, Pops, we could shoot for it.
I mean, just because it popped into my head earlier when Garbled was talking about color schemes, and the one that came into my head was the tiger, for example. the way that like, for example, you're looking at a tiger and it's like, for example, William Blake's poem Tiger, Tiger Burning Bright, because it's that bright orange color, but it does have the black stripes on. So like when you're looking at a tiger, it has that like insanely regal look, but obviously being a big cat and an ambush predator, the whole deal is that it like has to camouflage itself as it stalks you. And when you think about like how they're from like the jungles in Southeast Asia, for example, like Bengal tigers, the ones in India, when you look like the way that the sun shines through the jungle, it like almost it has that kind of orangish hue to it to an extent.
Yeah, that's because the
And
way the sun hits it reflects off a lot of the water there, and that the way the water is, and the green absorbs a lot of the color for that. It sort of reflects that back at it. You're correct. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's also why the stripes on the tiger that are dark just make it look like it's just another shadow of a branch or something like that from above, which is how they're so good. Despite like you only know that like it's a tiger when you're looking at it. Like otherwise, it's just a shadow, which I think is just something to take into account when you think about environmental factors, especially when it comes to not just color schemes, but like the patterns and everything.
I agree. That's a great point to bring up there. I thought originally we were just talking about like should animals exist in biomes, but no, having them specially fit the biomes like that. That's for pattern risk. That's
like
a great idea.
a little deeper into the design in that way. Yeah.
By the way, a few things from chat. Welcome back, Alex Gomez. What have you missed? Nothing in particular. Just rewind the stream, watch it 4 times to make sure you catch it all, Alex. And to answer Zim is a great question for all of us. What is our
peeve
creature design
on-
pet peeves? I want Pops to go last because Pops is a great pet peeve that he's going to bring up. I think I want to go first to give everybody a little chance to think about it. Then we'll go, Des, then then Garbled, then Mitch, then Pops.
Okay.
The pet peeve that I find the most irritating is whenever you have to rely on magic for something that could be done mundanely if you tried a little bit harder. It is really, really annoying whenever I see people say stuff like, oh, well, this creature flies, and I don't have it to have wings, but I want it to fly, so it's got magic. What are you freaking doing? Just give the dang thing wings. The wings don't have to be perfect. Like, obviously, dragon wings don't work for dragons. There's still got to be a little bit of magic there. But sell it to me. Lie to me a little bit. Walk me through your process with some of the idea. And you know what? Fine, Pops. I'll give you chat a little bit of a hint of Pops' horrible, horrible take. This is the thing that caused him to nearly kill Pag with a rock. And Pag would have deserved it too. Des?
That's not.
Yeah, Pag definitely deserved it.
All right.
And we're going to make sure that he knows it. And the only way he can stop us from talking about it is if he somehow super chats, more money in the time for it. But this is a test, Pag. How much do you love us? Are you watching or not? Des, what's your pet peeve when designing creatures? Or when people design them weird?
Des?
They're not Romans. Des.
That's one way to summon him, isn't it?
Hot take.
I mean, I can go in his stead if you want me to.
Instead, you're going to go next, Garble. Don't worry. Galax Gomez says
Okay.
make it powered by farts. You know what? Honest to God, if that was how you told me I want my creature to be powered by farts, I'd dig it. I'd be like, go for it, buddy. You got some explaining to do, but it's just better than screw you, it floats. Because I cannot tell you how many times people just tell me, oh, screw you, it just does the thing. Like, that's not fun. You're the designer here. Have a little bit more fun with it. All right, Garble, what's your creature design pet peeve?
Make everything have a function. I just really was like, oh, but this looks really cool. It's got like a multicolored pattern. It's like 17 different colors. It's like the rainbow, and it's like, give it purpose. Give it purpose. There is so much that you can do in a story for every single part of it. You can put so much time and effort into something, and you wanted to show your audience, so don't just be like, but I want it to be like pretty colors. Like, okay, give those colors reason to exist. Make it like a poison dart frog that gives it poison abilities and kills people if they try to get too close and whatever. And draw on real life inspiration. Just good artists borrow, great artists steal. That doesn't mean that you are actively harming yourself by. What's the best way to put it?
I added a little bit of realism in. Sorry, Garble, I got you, buddy. Mitch,
Oh yeah. What?
go ahead, Mitch, do you want to have anything you want to add?
I was going to say for Garble, you can also use that to establish kind of the tone of a given setting that's happening within your world. Because especially like if you kind of have that lurking implication that there's like danger around every corner, it really kind of establishes more of an intimate environment. If you kind of follow.
I agree. I don't know what you said, but I agree.
No, you should. You should.
Chat. Des agreed with what I told you his summary was. Remember that? Clip it and post it to him later so he feels bad. All right, Mitch, would you like to add what your pet peeve is, sir?
I would like to pass to Des so I can think for another minute.
That's right. You can pass the.
I don't have
Des
a pet peeve.
Des already spoke. We
Exactly.
already had his pet peeve.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that ironically was my pet peeve. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
There you go. All right, Pops. Go ahead and hit us with your pet peeves.
So a certain one that I definitely have, it's just a personal preference thing, is feathers on dinosaurs.
You like or dislike them?
I do not like them. It is a pet peeve because because I don't know. It's probably more of a personal opinion because I think it's so cool. But like when you've established, for example, in Jurassic Park, that the dinosaurs look the way that they do, lizards without feathers, and then like here we are trying to recreate like new designs out of nowhere that don't match up with the ones that without. You can't have the ones with feathers and without feathers if you know that like now because you think some of them should, but I don't know. It was like a weird inconsistency thing that bothered me about it.
They try to have the best of both worlds instead of just picking one and sticking to it.
Yeah.
I know kids like I said, like it sounds like Dinotopia had a very similar situation where
Dinotopia had the problem where the creator he felt bad that he couldn't do both because he wanted the books to be an education source instead of
that's what I mean.
To it.
You're right. I mean, Jurassic Park has like far less reason to do it, but like Yeah, like that's kind of my point. Like it's the exact same situation where like the guy wanted to, be a part of educational. It's like, dude, like it's not happening. Especially like when information changes that majorly. Like you can't course correct that.
Yeah, when the goal is entertainment, I mean, like you have to take that.
Yeah, like plus it's entertainment. Like who cares? Like you got to go the Monster Hunter route where it's like giant big lizard. Like I don't care if it's feathered. I want it. You gave me a giant dinosaur lizard, dragon thing. I want to kill it. I want to kill it with rocks. I want him dead now. I want to make a suit out of that guy.
Did he donate or what? He did not. Pag did not give. A lot of people give, Pag. A lot of people.
A lot of people give to this podcast. It's the best podcast.
Oh, by the way, chat, I forgot to tell you, I have a Ko-Fi set up now. I should probably link it in the description. If you want to give a donation, we're offline. Go ahead and throw some money there. Go for it. Get more money than the super chats. And if you do leave a message, I will read it on the next stream, assuming it's legal. If it's illegal, I'll read the legal parts.
Sweaty Cheesy, he gives.
Yes, he's a good man.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
So why don't you tell us the worst part of Pag's books ever? The thing that ruined everything forever.
You not mention that, dude? I was listening, and you were about to say that, and I was like a minute behind. What happened? Why didn't you mention it?
I want Pops to talk about it because it's funnier. Because
Okay.
this was a meme with the server for like a month.
I'm confused why this hasn't already been discussed. That's what I'm saying.
Not live. No, not in front of an audience.
And not in front of a studio audience.
Live studio. Dang it!
Get faster, Roman boy.
It's these guys are making it be more serious than it is because it did become a meme. But in his opening book of the Homestead trilogy, which is it's Homestead. Is it Holmes? Hang on.
It's Homestead Among the Stars is the first one.
It is Among the Stars, yeah, and then there's Homestead by Conquest, and yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yep.
I'm gonna spoil it. Is that good?
You can spoil what the creature is. It's in the opening like 2 or 3 chapters.
Yeah, so in the opening
chapter, spoil of the whole book. Screw Peg.
What
the book ends at some point.
No way.
It does?
What the hell?
No, it's impossible. It can't do that.
Yeah.
Yep,
My man is going to spoil a book that has been out for like less than 5 years or something like that, but refuses to spoil a book that has been out for 1,800 years. Let the double standard seek in and think about who you were sub to, chat.
Look,
okay, this dirty monster.
I had time to read it since it came out. You did too.
Exactly. Chat knows about it. We've been on this for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us, Pops, what is this horrible sin he committed?
So, this is more of a thing about the environment rather than the creature itself. But anyway, it does have to do with the creature, obviously, because of that. But one of the main characters finds herself, because she is a redhead, she finds herself in a jungle that she's not familiar with like creatures that she's not familiar with. And when I say creatures, I mean literally one creature, as far as I can remember, which is called a raker.
Yep.
And this raker meme has been passed around a bit in the servers, and
these rakers are these big cat-like hunters. They're like poisonous blood. They're thick as heck, and they have claws that are like short swords, like Roman gladiators. They just kill and shred everything. They have the temperament of a cat where they just kill stuff for fun.
The way that they were designed is that initially they're described as like in the shape of a cat, like they're kind of feline formed, but they have, I think it's like more of a lizard, like a scaly body with kind of armor on the back, like
near bulletproof armor.
And then a scorpion's tail, which I appreciate the reference to the manticore there, which is pretty sweet. But
fantasy creature.
Yeah, so it encounters one of our main characters when it's hanging in a tree, and this person decides, well, I'm going to kill this thing and eat it, which is like, all right, sweet, go ahead. And she does that pretty easily because she is a professionally trained person who can do that sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, so then my issue was that this was recognized among the people of that environment who she later runs into. Very great, because this is supposedly known as a great apex predator. And it threw me off a bit because, and first of all, in the environmental design, we don't see any other animals or things like that. And it is implied, as kind of a feline character. And it is described as feline verbatim in the text, like the feline as a noun and everything, not just in adjective. So, going off of that, we assume it eats meat and it hunts and, kills what it eats and everything. And there are no other animals that I know of in that environment. And it tripped me up. I thought, well, what do these things eat? Because they play such a large role in the culture of that region that, I mean, people do hunt them, although they have to be genetically upgraded in order to eat them because they're poisonous. But once they become the kind of next level, I forget what are they called? Next
Post-humans.
Post-humans, yes. So when you are post-human, you're able to consume this thing and it's not poisonous. And yet people go out and actively hunt them. And I was always like, well,
And they kill enough of them.
why?
They have like their carcasses on the walls, and the
They-
main character kills a couple of them. And you're like,
They,
hey, just killing these things, like they're cool, and they're just meant to be a secondary side thing. But go ahead, Pops.
not just that, they actively hunt them to use them and their body parts as tools. Like they use the spikes on the back or the shells as like shields and things like that. And I thought there's got to be an easier animal out there to hunt, right? And so it didn't make sense to me that these people would look at this animal, quote unquote, fantasy. Oh, it's sci-fi animal. And, as an apex predator and think, well, that's the thing that I want to hunt for the resources I can get out of it. Because, I mean, that's never been the way that humans operate. You're not going to go after the top thing. You're going to go after the one that's the easiest to get, especially if you're, in a dire situation. These people were in a pretty primitive situation. And so, I mean, a lot of it wasn't the Raker itself. The Raker itself was interesting, but the environment around it didn't quite make sense to me in that way. And I autistically argued with Pag about it for quite a while. And
What
that's
do they eat?
Yeah, over the course of months, it kept coming up.
And it became
So
a fantastic meme.
It boiled down to, what do the Rakers eat?
So if you ever want to really bully Peg, just ping him in my server and do it repeatedly, asking him, hey, what do the Rakers eat?
And if I may say what
Certainly.
he said. So as an answer, he said, people. I said, they eat people? Well, that makes even less sense. But at that point, he had been pressed for quite a while and literally I assume, might have recognized, like, oh, boy, there actually are no other prey animals on this in this environment. If there are, then, like, literally, I'm sorry, man, and I forget because I did read the thing 2 years ago and I haven't read it since.
It's the worst sin he's ever committed. Don't worry.
Mhm.
He will get to the
We
gates
should
of
kill
heaven
him
and
for
St.
it.
Peter will turn him away for this. They'll be like, all that weird
Good.
stuff you said on Discord, that's fine, buddy. Having the Rakers not have a food source, you're going straight to Gehenna.
No, sorry, dude. Just
Okay.
But
you
yeah,
didn't put the time and care that God put into all of his creatures into this one thing, so I'm afraid that we're gonna have to damn you to hell.
All right. So a couple things from chat we want to go over, unless Mitch is ready to give us his take.
I have concluded that I do not have a overarching pet peeve about creature design.
That is okay. Alex Gomez has an interesting
That's
one.
my take.
Yeah, where he says that he wishes extraterrestrial life had a bit more variety than just being a squid, an insect, or a frog, which I agree. Also, weird animal. That's another thing. I think a lot of aliens are. They're just not quite. They don't have the punch. And he remembers of Skull Island where they had, a whole bunch of killing machine monsters. Yeah, Skull Island is wild like that. That movie takes you out of it really quickly. And
Kid,
Future
have I
Warriors,
given my
Yeah.
just real quick,
I-
have I given my one spiel about like how to be a content creator? Just because it also implies to like making anything. Have I ever given that spiel on this channel before?
maybe go for it now.
Oh,
We're gonna wrap up
oh
soon.
well,
So
the
go ahead and go
spiel
for
is
it.
that you have. So if you want to make something great, you have to be passionate. You have to make it unique, and it has to be something that people didn't know that they wanted.
Yep.
So if you're just like, but I made this really cool creature, it's like a dog, but more dog. It's like, okay, that doesn't really inspire confidence, you know?
I got you.
Give it punch, give it meaning, give it intrigue.
And Future Warrior left an interesting comment about dog people. Some people during the medieval times believed the Senefali were a real people from a faraway lands of the Senefani are dog people who don't talk
That-
but bark, and they're smart and think like people.
That originates a lot farther back than the Middle Ages. I think the
Yeah.
Greeks were the talk about that.
We should probably
Yeah,
have an
there's a-
entire channel discussion about dog people,
little
because there's a lot of cool stuff in history. There's a lot of interesting insults and racism with it. I have dog people in my setting called the Lahayan. We could talk about them. We could also talk about why there's no good dog people in any big fantasy properties. That might be a
You know
fun
what?
future topic. Go ahead, Pops.
In terms of imagery, like not necessarily something that they thought was like something you could see in real life, though. In terms of like the imagery of it, it goes back to Egypt. Now that I think about it,
Yes.
jackal-headed. Yeah,
there's a like the things that especially like the Romans and even Europeans, even into like Charlemagne's age, like what they thought like inhabited Eastern Europe, like it is very funny and I mean leads to a lot of cool
Yeah.
fantasy races you could easily just directly take from like Greek mythology.
my favorite is probably still the acephalai, which if you know the language of cephalus means like head, and so acephalus means like headless, and
Okay, so you are thinking. I was like, is this the one I'm thinking of? And then you started. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
so a couple of different historians all had accounts of people in, I think, Libya that didn't have heads but had faces and mouths on their chests instead, and it's hilarious that like lasted, you know.
So interesting you bring that up, because that is
I know there's a reason for this. I know, kid. Yeah, kid. I know, kid. You're about to get into it, but yeah.
because
there's
the
a reason.
Libyan ones are considered the nice versions. There's another group that Herodotus wrote about that live in Scythia, and they're
Alex-
also called the Androphagi because they're man-eaters. They're specifically known as people who eat the flesh of people they kill. And the Androphagi, which are this, they look the same as the ones Pops described, where they got their face and their chest and their big burly muscles. They don't actually have a head. Are a fantasy creature in my own setting that I have. They're sort of like these like created apex hunters that are just cruel and violent. I think my dad described them as being the Borg mixed with Mongols, because they just assimilate and destroy things that they can touch, which is pretty
Wait.
cool.
It's just the Mongols.
No, because the Mongols also commit struggle snuggles. These guys don't. They just eat you.
Oh, okay, so that's the Borg. The Borg part is that they don't struggle snuggle. Every
just
other
consume
part
you.
is the
Exactly.
Mongol. Okay.
Exactly.
All right, and then Future Warrior is correct. They wrote there's a letter to the Pope about if the dog-headed men should be treated as Christians or not. And we will read that when we do the dog discussion. I'm telling you, dog-headed men would be an actually great podcast topic. We're not going to do it next week probably, but I will definitely add that to the pool for Chihuahua. That's a really good part and a good topic discussion. It's not St. Christopher. Yeah, they did think St. Christopher's one too. With that, I want to turn to one last little tidbit before I send you all to go join Nebula the Wanderer on twitch.tv stream. I'll be joining him shortly after I get something to eat, so you can go say hi to him and tell him we sent you. Go rate him. I'll be posting his link in chat. But, chat, my friends, my fellow countrymen, there is a theory.
My king, what can we do for you?
Yes. There is a theory in literature and all of storytelling that there is no such thing as a bad idea, only bad executions. This goes back to the way that we talk about fantasy creatures with Pokemon. And because we talk about Pokemon and the Romans, this is something I have to bring up. Jim Butcher, who wrote the Dresden Files, which, for the record, fantastic little fantasy series. If you want to know how to write, I would suggest reading the Dresden Files. They are not like, if I tell you like it's written like Tolkien, if you go read Tolkien, you're not going to learn how to write. He's too high-minded and too great of an author for you to emulate just by reading him. However, the Dresden Files, the way Jim Butcher, the author, writes, much more approachable, much more down to earth, much more understandable. You can break it down much easier, and it's a little bit more overt. Not that it's bad at all. It's really fun and fantastic. But you can see the sauce being made, if you will. So it should help you as an author figure out how to do stuff. He was arguing on a forum post in 2002 with a bunch of other people who were talking about making writing, and they said, "Oh, Jim, Your book, The Dresden Files, of having a wizard in modern day Chicago who's basically a 1940s detective, that was just a good idea. You only succeeded because of good ideas. And he said to the guy, you know what? Fuck you, buddy. There are no such thing as good ideas. It's all about how you execute it. Give me the worst two, the stupidest idea you possibly can, and I promise you I'll make it into a best-selling book series. And the guy said, all right, dumbass, how about the Lost Roman Legion and Pokemon?
So easy.
And he said, bet. And then he wrote a 6-book fantasy series called the Codex Alara. And the best part is,
bestseller.
it's
You-
best. It's a New York Times bestseller for the books. The best part is when he finished it, he posted the guy and said, "Hey, I finished this thing, but I think I want to get it published." And the guy on the forum said, "Ha ha, that means you suck and I win." And Jim responded to him with a picture of the $10,000 paycheck he got, saying, "Yep, I guess you do win for what he sold the book rights."
There you go.
Like, he gave him such an easy one too. Like Pokemon and the Lost Legion.
Oh,
Like,
crap. We mentioned Roma Rendes. Oh, no.
you could
That's
pick
why I wanted
more.
to bring it up, though, because you two are here, Mr. Pokemon and Mr. Rome. It's the perfect time to bring it up.
It's like
There-
peanut
you-
butter with chocolate.
It just
Exactly.
works.
Why would you bring up the Lost Legion? Like, that's such an interesting concept.
Ain't it?
Like,
So-
why would that's such a
Because the idea
Why
was
would
these
you
two
ever
ideas
say
are
that?
too hard to tie something. This goes back to what I was saying. There's only idiots out there. Anytime, by the chat, anytime you think that you can't be a writer, I promise you, go pick up literally. I mean literally. This is not an exaggeration. I do mean literally. Any Harley Quinn romance novel, not Harley Quinn the character, but like any of those romance novels that you see where it's like some naked, strapping young black or white guy on the cover. Read 4 pages of that and realize I could do better. And also realize this book that you hold in your hand is worth $100,000. They sold thousands of these copies to all the gooning women out there. Remember
Hey,
that, chat.
at
You
this
can
point,
write.
they're not even white or black. Now we're into monsters at this point.
We
Oh,
are in
right.
Boston.
There's an entire section in Barnes & Noble called Hear
Yes,
Me Out.
there is. Yes, there is.
And it's miserable.
I am
We
not
have
surprised, and that makes me sad.
war
Yeah.
has changed. War has changed.
Exactly.
Women were a mistake.
War has changed.
So can just as a funny send off, I want to. Does anybody care about Fourth Wing and its sequels?
I don't
Never
know.
heard of it.
Go for it.
Okay.
Lee.
Yeah, just an example I thought was, I think it's one of those things that it does sort of work in context, but I find the concept of it so absurd that I feel I need to share it. So in the third Fourth Wing book, the male romantic lead, who is not the female is the prospective character in this case, he's slowly getting. It's incorrect to say he has Randall Thor syndrome and that he's being driven insane by the magic, but we can use that as shorthand. And so what happens is, during the big climactic sex scene, what happens is there's huge lightning storm raging outside, and what they say is, all right, just to be safe, I'm going to stage like 4 knives at easy spots around this room so you can kill me if I go too far.
Hey
I mean-
guys, I'm a little bit freaky at night. If I get a little bit too freaky, stab me.
Well, yeah, and
If I engage in gamer mode shenanigans, kill me.
Yeah, okay, wait. I just want to say something real quick. Yeah, by accident, Alex Gomez. I got you. I got by accident. All right.
Just to, and the reason I highlight that is because it is pretty well set up throughout the book in both senses of, okay, the female lead is probably the only person who can actually kill this guy if she felt like it, but at the same time, he's not gonna, what would you say? He's not gonna pretend that he isn't viciously in love with her. And I found that stuff like that makes you think, man, for what this is actually pretty all right, but I'm pretty sure that I can make something better than that.
Gotcha.
And that's a perfectly okay thing as well.
Fair enough.
What's the quote that you told me before? Something mediocre that exists is better than something that is fantastic but
Oh yes,
doesn't.
yeah. So if any of y'all watched Hakita, the Ultra Kill Dev's video on game design, one of the absolute bangers he dropped was something mediocre that exists is better than something good that doesn't exist.
I agree.
Simple to the
I
point.
agree.
I want to say something real
Yeah.
quick as well. if you read, from my understanding, I haven't found this in too much of the first-hand sources I've read, mainly because they're more 11th, more 12th century, so beyond when they thought dog people were roaming around. Slavs at this point, they found it was actually just Slavs. It was just the dirty Slavs. I'm pretty sure if you go back and read that stuff, the dog people were not metaphorical. They were like, no, this is dog people. Like there was no metaphor. There was like there are dog-headed people.
It was
somewhere out there.
Try living somewhere where winter lasts 8 months.
it was phrased in a very matter-of-fact way, at least in the translations, you know.
So I do want to, if you want to tie into dog people once more, dog-headed people actually predates writing. It predates agriculture too. We know this because of the ancient dogmen called the Kyrios, which is a ritual that you have to go through as a young man in a whole lot of ancient societies where they to teach boys how to be warriors. They had the boys raise up wolf pups to be their pets.
Yeah.
They had to hunt and live with them. And then when they were 12, they gave them a stick and a rock and said, "Kill your dog." And you had to kill it, skin it, eat it, and wear its skin for a few days. And that's where the origin of this, wolf thing. Fun fact: this is also part of a great meta theory I have as to why furries keep existing, because they're trying to harken back to the ancient warrior culture. But unfortunately, they're furries, so they have.
I was gonna
haven't
say,
quite
I'm not
scratched their
sure.
itch. No,
I was gonna
it's
say,
a
I feel like
misfiring pylon in their head, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
They remember the ancient ancestral memory of, I was once a great warrior donned in fur. So they want to do that, but then they just get too wrapped up with, but I like that tail and I like sniffing diapers. Because, that's what furries unfortunately
I was
get
gonna
into.
say, I feel like we're missing something.
We're
from
going
the
in
warrior
very
culture.
different directions
Ma-
here, though, aren't we?
Well, yeah, we're missing like the entire point of the warrior culture, like the entire,
I can't get into the safe versions of it here on stream, but just I want you to think about it for a second, Des. What is the thing that happens every time warriors after a battle when they find a group of now husbandless women? That same energy.
I mean, if
take that same energy and think about what happens at fur conventions and tell me,
It's
wait
so
a second, I think I realize where you're coming from, sir. There's a reason that TL, God rest his soul, every time the minute I brought it up once, he means like, you're completely correct. I'm never going to doubt anything you say again. He argues with what a chair is, but he heard that and he's like, you're completely correct, and this is 100% true.
well, I mean, he's speaking from personal experience from that.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't
There's
think
no way
he's
not.
whoa. And not only that, not only that.
Come on.
I was gonna make a quick joke, but I got distracted. Son of a gun. Screw you, Maz. I was just gonna say, Tio has never personally experienced a chair before, so that he can understand. Unlike
He has
the
never
part.
personally experienced a chair,
All right.
except for the one we're gonna,
except for the one we're gonna break on his back.
The upside down.
All right, so with that chat, I'm gonna post in link. Go say hi to Nebula. Go bother him and tell him I'll be joining him shortly. Go, I guess Twitch, this is called raiding, but I don't go on Twitch. I prefer my politics not communist. And I don't want to destroy all certain groups of people based on, their own traits. So, yeah, with that chat.
If Armenians deserve to exist, that's pretty radical.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great to have you.
It has been great for having everybody here. You guys are fantastic.
Thanks for having me all.
Of course, Mitch. So before we get into goodbye memes, I do owe chat a little bit of an explanation. We are still trying to help Rooney. He's being very, very difficult. Thank you all for the donations. The money will go to help him. He's just, I don't know.
He's Rooney.
If you want more information, I'll be talking about it more in the Discord. This is the last time I'm talking about it on stream. The money is still safe in an account. We're trying to figure out a way to help him with it. I don't want to get any more details because it'll be personal information. But know that it is still trying to go to help him for all those who donated. If you want more information, DM me on Discord, or we can talk in Discord. Those of you who donated, it is still going to go out to help him. So just know that it is still being worked on, because I know there's a lot of questions around that. With that, chat, thank you all for joining us tonight. We'll catch you all next week.
That's right. And everybody remembers subscribe to you guys know who, right?
Yep. Go subscribe to him. Thank you all, boys.